The Freedom Cast begins now.
Felicitations, friends, indeed. It is the 4:20 p.m. Central Time Hour, and for the last time, I am coming to you live from the helm of the realm. It's going to be a long time before you see me here, live and in person. I will be sentenced tomorrow as a violent offender, sent to violent offender prison for using a firearm during the commission of a felony. Then I will be sentenced to 12 years because of the violence of the nature of my offense. I will be sentenced to 35% time, which works out to 52 months in prison. May fortune favor the fearless. I will be filing all the appeals, not only against the guns that were erroneously charged against me, that were found in somebody else's house, that didn't belong to me, and that were also thrown out in pretrial, and I will be appealing the unlawful prohibition that is enforced against humanity through legislation. I will go to the highest court in the land, and I will follow the law every step of the way, as I have done from the beginning, as the only thing that we can do. When the entity violates our rights and commits crimes against us, we cannot respond by calling for more criminal behavior. So when the entity is throwing people in prison for the use and the sales and the growth of cultivation of cannabis, thank you. Oh, there you are. And we then go forth and declare that some people should be able to do it while others cannot. You're calling for a system of Jim Crow prohibition, prohibiting the individual from their pursuit of happiness, from their right to consent as consenting adults, as free citizens with free will in a free society where a free market enterprise protects the peace and the prosperity of a community. When you are faced with these charges, you must follow the law. The court is violating our rights by following legislation. You, the sheep, will gather to seek legislation to help them violate our rights. The reason I am going to prison is that you, the sheep, will not follow the law. You have allowed yourselves to believe by pulling the wool over your eyes and stuffing the cotton in your ears and shoving your heads up the asses of sheeple around you that leading lambs is slaughter to the fodder. That legislation will set some free, and that's enough for you. They are using legislation to violate us. You are using legislation to violate us. Every piece of legislation out there, whether it has been enforced by the ministers of injustice or you, the sheeple, want to enforce it, your version of legislation, not one word of what everybody else has ever said will keep me from going to prison tomorrow. Not one word. Not abrogate, not medicalize, not legalize, not recreationalize, any other lies you want to fall for. Decriminalize, medicalize marijuana does not set me free. Does not open the prison doors for all of those who are also similarly incarcerated for doing nothing to no one. And many, like me, have been branded and labeled a violent criminal who did nothing to no one, while doing nothing to no one with a gun. And in my case, I was not even in possession of the weapon. I was in constructive possession of the weapon. A weapon that was in somebody else's house that was 2 rooms away from here. And I was in constructive possession. How? It wasn't my gun. It wasn't my house. And that was why the guns were dropped at pretrial. They needed the specter of the gun to wave at the jury. Because as in all cases regarding cannabis, it's never about the cannabis. It's always about everything else to do with cannabis. Drug cartels, guns. So some nutbag, pus-faced geek opens fire on a schoolyard, and now millions of people will be denied their right to own a weapon. And by right, I do not mean some constitutional right that, by the way, according to the Constitution, you do not have. You are not part of a well-formed militia. See, the government wanted it very clear They gave you the right to have guns so that they could call upon you as a well-formed militia. So if you've got a gun, you're not part of a well-formed militia, such as the Minutemen of our Revolutionary War fame. They had weapons because in a minute's notice, to arms, they could be called. So the government allowed you, the sheeple, to have your guns in order to be declared part of a well-formed militia. Now that is obsolete and antiquated. We don't need to round up the people in the streets to grab their muskets and pitchforks. The British are coming. We have a regulated army. We have volunteers, the largest volunteer army in the world, military forces in the world. And so we do not need to have people in the streets with guns. However, we don't need a constitution to tell us what we can or cannot have, or what we can or cannot do. We have an individual for that. I don't care what you do with your gun until you point it at another individual. Because when you point it at one individual, you're pointing it at all of us. Because we are connected as individuals. When you learn to stand up and declare, I am the law, that there's no mens rea, that you find your individuality, reaching down, grabbing hold, and declaring, I am the law, to any and all parties, from the tip of my nose to the top of the toes, and all points in between. I am the law. So when you point your gun at one of us, we are all connected. But when you line up collectively to split us up, and to say that there's more of us than there are of you, and therefore you have to bow to our will, you see, then you are using legislation in the commission of a crime to rob another of their rights. So that because some jerk in some state, in a place where I've never been, a person I've never known, shoots people, goes postal, I can't have a weapon to protect myself, especially here in the mean streets of America's most violent and dangerous community. And I can't have a weapon. Who said that I can't? See, you can have all the weapons you want until you use them against somebody. That's the law. You make a gun, I want a gun. With rights comes responsibility. Now, that gun, like your telephone, could have a little tracker put into it like nothing. And that way we always know where that gun is. So if you own a 9mm and your 9mm was at the address where somebody was shot with a 9mm, we've got our guy. So this would take on also, who cares who's got the gun? We'll always know. We need to know who's got what gun to solve the crimes that we need to solve. But prohibition is not required. See, every time you reach for the Constitution, you find out that you're legislated out of your rights. That the government has taken responsibility for you. You don't have any rights. Therefore, you don't have any responsibility. If you hand me down a prescription, I'm not able to respond to it because you've taken away my rights. See, I'm supposed to go out there and support myself and be a viable member of society. But since you violated my rights, I can't get the job I need to take responsibility for myself. I'm a junior high school dropout with a criminal record. So I'm 55 years old. I'm unskilled labor. What job do you think I could get? A job that I wouldn't do. A job that I probably could not do. So I'm not going to do that. I'm fortunate enough to have had this glib gift of gab to go to strip clubs for all those years and make my living, saying clever things about naked women. I was doing that at home anyway. I might as well go to the club and get paid to do it. When you hold on to legislation, you let go of humanity. By holding on to the legislation, you declare that paper covers people. That as an individual, I have to answer to the entity, which means that two people gathering together cannot consent. Two people alone in a room, that's the law. It's a two-party arrangement between you and me. And what comes next will be decided by you and me. Not by legislation, not by popular opinion or vote. So this is what I run up against tomorrow when I go to plead guilty. And I have to, rather, to be sentenced. I never pled guilty. I will be filing my appeals. One of the appeals I'll file is a motion to manumit me. I've been to a free state like Dred Scott. So now as a Negro slave who's been to a free state, my slave master can manumit me and say that I can remain free. I am going to use the law every step of the way. Even though the court at this time, and these criminal courts, have abandoned the law to follow legislation. I will follow the law to the letter of the law. And the letter of the law is quite simple. And it reads and it follows. Actus reus, your act. Actus reus. non-facet, my mind, facilities of the mind, actus reus, non-facet reum nisi mensit rea. For the act to be guilty, the mind must also be guilty. And for the mind to be guilty, the act must be criminal. And a crime is an overt act with the intent to do harm to a person, property, or puppy. That act will be defined by the individual, not by the entity. If you look at the case of Colorado v. Kobe Bean Bryant, NBA Hall of Fame basketball player, ass-raping sodomite, and who raped a woman. The woman came forward and said she had been raped in her ass by Kobe Bryant in a Colorado hotel room. She was the room service maid. Now, when she no longer wanted to come forward and press the charges, they didn't continue on and say, we know you did it. We have all the evidence. There's the semen in her ass. There's the bruises and the markings. There you are. But they could not proceed. You know why? Because they didn't have a victim. If there's not a victim to come forward, the prosecution can't proceed in a rape case. Yet they can proceed against Cannabis Universe. You must at every time expose the fact that their own evidence and testimony does not hold up. That I'm using their evidence and testimony against them every step of the way to prove that there was no crime committed. That I am the law. That there's no mens rea. Until there's a victim who says, well, what you did to me was wrong. Then I will answer to the individual, but never to the entity. The entity has no voice. The entity is made up of you, the sheeple, who gave away your individuality to be part of the system, where you follow legislation, and now you're part of the club. I don't want to be part of the club. I don't want to join. I didn't want to join a fraternity where I'd have to get naked with a bunch of guys paddling each other's asses, shaving each other's dicks, and having jerk-off contests. I don't want to join that club. Here in America, I don't want to go to your church. And if I do go to church, I don't want to go to this one. I want to go to that one. See, the sign out front doesn't, you believe in God and Jesus? Yeah. But how? The Episcopalian way? The Mormon way? The Holy Roller way? Don't come in here talking in tongues and rolling on the floor. We're Methodists. We don't do that. So you'll be asked to go worship your own way. And that's all respected. But in the world, I don't have to belong to a denomination, a congregation, a club, or a group. I am part of humanity. That's all I need to be, is born. And as I was talking with Tom Lucky yesterday, who follows a sovereign pattern, he is out there something for petitions for Morgan & Morgan, who's fighting for medicalized marijuana. At this time, you see, I don't hold it against them that they're following this path of ignorance, because we're all born ignorant. I was ignorant. I wrote a book in ignorance. I've been in court speaking in ignorance. It took me a long time to shed the ignorance, to understand and then embrace the reality. Now, once you hear the reality, if you continue to ignore it, now you're no longer ignorant, you're stupid. So Morgan & Morgan spending $100 million to medicalize marijuana. And Tom Lucky is working through them, working with the lawyer Michael Minardi, who was working with Shona Banda, who got her that great deal. Lawyers are now bragging about the great deals they get you, and they call it victory. All around, lawyers are saying they're setting precedents, setting people free in Cannabis Universe. Legislation is making it legalized and decriminalized and recreationalized and medicalized and all kind of other lies. Everywhere you go. So what then is the problem? With almost everybody is free. Hey, look, in Jim Crow America, right? I mean, we're only talking about 3% of the population that wasn't going to be allowed to ride on the front of the bus. And that was going to be the Negroes in the Jim Crow South. So what are we going on about this whole sitting at the front of the bus thing when 97% of America can sit at the bus anywhere they want? What's the big deal? That's the inhumanity we're falling into now. Where a New Jersey governor comes out and lauds, our medical marijuana bill will cover practically everyone. That's a little impractical for me, since I'm always the one that it doesn't cover. Remember, I was dealing weed on Facebook. I was putting it in their faces. I was making them face the law, the truth, the reality of what I am doing. And from the moment they arrested me right on through the court, I made certain to make my position with them quite clear. That I have every right to do what I'm doing, and you have no right to criminalize me for what I'm doing, since, I've done nothing to no one. So I want you to listen to me here. This goes from the time that I got arrested right on through the court, as I make our case clear so you understand how to make the case for yourself and to explain it to others. Listen to it as it's actually happening.
On today's date, detectives with the Shelby County Sheriff's Narcotics Division and Metro Gang Unit executed state search warrant at 758 Mary Young. Served a search warrant or executed a search warrant naming Thorne Peters as the target of the address. Thorne, can you tell me how we got here?
Now, at this moment, they've had me arrested. This is from February 3rd, 2015. Over 3 years ago, 4 trial dates and 3 judges for a guy that from the moment they arrested him, who had been dealing pot on Facebook, was saying, come and get me so I could go to trial. And it took him a year. And then 3 years and 3 judges? Gee, it sounds like this no mens rea thing kind of has them stumped in the blocks. They needed to use the pistols in the commission of a crime in court in order to criminalize me and throw me in prison, to give the jury a way to look away from the weed. In your case, they won't be able to look away from the weed. They'll have to follow the law. No mens rea. They won't have a way to cower it out. So, here I am. At this moment, they have taken Lady L into custody. And she was down the hall. She was not under arrest at that time. They were using her to hold over me. So if I didn't give them a good statement, after all, this is her house. I could have just stood up and said, I don't live here. I live across the street. Good luck to you, honey. And tell her, it'd be better for you to do this. You're sympathetic. They won't throw you in prison for years, in violent offender prison. So I could have said it to her, but I wanted to make certain that she was going to be safe and here and holding down the fort. So I told them it was all mine. All the weed was mine. And so they wanted to hold her over my head. So while they were interrogating me, she's down the hall. And, she's a strong woman. She's a brave woman. She's a sexual savant and all, but those many years ago as a 19-year-old, when she was standing up at the rally at UCLA against the Vietnam War, she was beaten by police, taken into custody, and gang raped in a security office at UCLA. So I didn't know if being, chained up in a little stone room again was bringing her back any heebie-jeebies. I had to get her out of there. So I want you to listen here to me now, making certain that the beloved enchantress goes free.
Okay, well, I'd be happy to be in full disclosure. First, I got to know what's going on down there with her.
Okay.
That's my whole key. Well, she's not being charged with anything, and we're good.
Not at this time. What we do, we have to find out who's going to be accepting the charge on the marijuana and stuff.
I am.
That would be okay.
But if I accept the charge on that, and we're clear with that, she goes home and sleeps in her bed tonight.
As long as everything is on you and nothing is on her.
Nothing is on her.
All she doesn't have anything illegal on her.
No, she doesn't have anything illegal on her.
Well, she doesn't have anything to worry about. Okay.
I accept that.
Did you then take Mr.
Now, this is me in court. And this is the ADA speaking with that detective you just heard me talking to, Detective Gary Lambert.
Peters into custody?
Yes, we did.
Was he read his Miranda rights?
Yes, on the scene.
Did he appear to understand his Miranda rights?
Yes.
Did he appear to be under the influence of anything that would prevent him from waiving his Miranda rights?
He did. He seemed fine to me.
Did he then waive his Miranda rights and give you a statement?
Yes, at the office.
What did he tell you?
In his recorded statement, he told me that he basically bought and sold dope, weed, marijuana.
Well, which one?
He said he called himself a dope dealer.
Did he claim ownership to anything in the house?
Yes, he claimed all the marijuana.
At any time after these proceedings?
Absolutely. I'm just focused on the guns. I don't care about the pot. When you got there, did I tell you that all the marijuana belonged to me?
Yes.
So Ms. Hara was not charged with any marijuana on the premises whatsoever, because I was very clear the pot was mine.
Do you know that Mr. Thorne Peters sells marijuana out of your home?
Now, this is Lady L on the stand with them. And they're trying to fish to try to get her to confess to being part of my nefarious operation. Listen up.
Objection, Your Honor. It has nothing to do with whether or not she has standing of the guns at that house. She is not
That's not the only
in any
thing
way
that we're
compromised.
addressing, sir.
Yes, the only issue that's before this court is the only cross-examination that I gave her. She cannot redirect and cross-examine her that she did not give on direct testimony. We're speaking about who had the guns there. Nobody discussed marijuana. She has no need to implicate herself in anything to do with marijuana.
The home.
She's already established that she had no marijuana in the home, so therefore it was done. What she knew or may not have known has nothing to do with the weapons.
The home itself is an issue.
Fine. But there's nothing that says I dealt weed from 758 Mariana Street.
Now, I want you to listen to very carefully what I just said. This is going to set them up and put them at odds with their case. Because if this time the affidavit reads that they responded to a felony. How the hell do you respond to a felony? You're saying, like Miss Cleo sent you a message on the wind. There was nothing in the narrative about a confidential informant or an investigation. Now, previously at my 420 Friendly Nightclub, when the cops came upon me, and there was a snitch, it said there was a snitch right in the affidavit. It said that they had been in a 9-month-long sting operation. It said then that when I went to pretrial, the snitch testified. Well, there's nothing about a snitch anywhere, and here I am at pretrial, and I don't see a snitch testifying, so listen to that. Now we make it very clear there's no evidence whatsoever that I ever dealt weed from this address, and there's a reason for that. I never did. Everybody that came here to score knows that I met you in the middle of the street in your car, then we came on in and hung out. But I did the deal in the street, so there was no weed in my house or her house. There's an abandoned house across the street where I dug a honey hole along the side, and that's where I kept the weed. So I know it's semantics, but it was for that very moment. So that we could pass a lie detector, and so we never dealt weed from here. That's the way it was. So I know it was semantics, but I made certain to make sure that that was part of the narrative. So you have no evidence that I dealt weed from here. They had no evidence from a confidential informant that I had dealt weed from here. When you hear this pretrial in April of 2015, but wait for it.
She asked a question. It's cross-examination. Go ahead.
Ms. Hare, did you know that Mr. Thorne Peters sold marijuana out of your home?
I know that he does counterbank challenge. I was sleeping that morning.
Would you repeat what you said? You know that he what?
I know that he does the counterbank challenge, which...
Can-a-bag challenge?
May I ask
Let me clarify. Can-a-bag challenge. Tell me what that is.
You don't know what a counterbank challenge is? Do you know what ALS challenge is?
Yeah, it's like a challenge.
It's the same thing with pot. Okay.
Detective Lambert just testified that I said all the weed was mine, and all the weed was charged to me. It was in my bag in her home without her knowledge. She was asleep in the bedroom.
That's what he said.
Right, and I believe him.
Are you making an admission here in open court?
Of what? That the pot was mine?
Yes.
Of course I've made the admission that the pot was mine from the time they arrested me. I am a conscientious objector committing acts of civil disobedience to end the political siege known as prohibition against pot.
Shut that
It is an
sheeple up.
illegal, unconstitutional position this court takes every time they prosecute a pothead.
Just following the law as it stands.
That's what they used to say during Jim Crow, Your Honor.
You see that, how easily they say that? We're following the law. You're following legislation and ignoring the law. I am the law.
Very well. I would waive the motion hearing and skip right to trial. I say let's go to voir dire, as I was ready for on July 11th. I would like for this court to articulate what possible conflict they could have in a pot case where I was dealing pot on Facebook, where I made YouTube videos about dealing on Facebook, where I did an article in the Memphis Flyer about dealing pot on Facebook, where I told the cops that arrested me I was dealing pot, and I told the lower court that I was dealing pot. What is the possible conflict of interest, except for the fact that you cannot face the evidence in this trial, which also involves that 8-year-long conspiracy that is on point and connected to this trial.
So, as I went forth against them, this was my evidence and testimony. I was dealing pot. I was growing pot. When I was at my 420 Friendly Nightclub, I made the issue about pot. I'd smoke pot at every table. I wasn't going to buy a nightclub, so I'd go stand in the back of the club and smoke pot out by the garbage can. And there I am in Hollywood, on Hollywood and Vine, at Deja Vu Showgirls, surrounded by millennial hottie strippers. I've got a medical marijuana card, so I'm actually medically buying my marijuana in Hollywood. There was just no way around it. I could not hump the streets of Hollywood going, psst, who's got the weed? It was ludicrous. So I had to go take the pink deal. And after saying I'd never take that big deal, You have to because of convenience. I'm sorry, it was just the way of it. I was true blue. I tried humping the streets, and what I'd end up finding is somebody with a medical card who would go in and buy it. So what big stand am I making here? So after about a week, I had to give it up. And as soon as I started getting paid from my strip club gig, I went and got the medical marijuana card. $150 fucking dollars. And there I am in Hollywood with these knockouts. We want to smoke weed at the club. Where are we smoking? You guessed it. Behind the fucking club at the garbage dumps. Since the 1970s on the town, I have predominantly we end up smoking weed out by the garbage bin. While the drugs can sit in there drinking themselves and vomiting and getting another refill into oblivion, I gotta go smoke weed out by the dumpster while they're sitting there in comfort with air conditioning. So fuck that. It's my club. We gonna smoke weed. So I smoke pot in good faith. The entity, the Ministers of Injustice here, opened up a sting operation at the club that went on for 9 months, involving 5 different law enforcement agencies, all because of this one little lowly war pig some of you may have been acquainted with. Former detective, then deputy, then detective, now former detective deputy. I got it right this time. Gary Beans, the man of the greatest catfish story ever told. A story that you go to at thornpeters.com and you check out in the episodes and podcast section. See that? It's the greatest catfish story ever told. The picture alone is going to let you know we're really onto something here. So, it all begins with a lowly little war pig, falsifying reports and planting evidence, and because he's so lost-faced, the entire department. This is the only criminal conspiracy in history that started at the bottom of the barrel and worked its way up to the tippity top. That it ends with the DA and the sheriff in front of my club in a media blitz, closing me down as a front for drug trafficking, dealing drugs in volume to minors. But I'm the pot-smoking hedonist who loves smoking pot with smoking hot women. This is my 420 friendly club. And to be truthful and semantic, I threw out anybody dealing drugs. I didn't want that there. You know, I mean, if you're on your drugs, you're on your drugs. I don't want it around me. So now here's the narrative. 9-month-long sting operation. They declare that I'm committing a crime. In fact, I got page after page after page where it reads that I'm committing a crime. Well, as I asked Detective Gary Lambert on the stand in this trial of the millennium, I said, let me ask you this. So, you respond to a crime with your weapon drawn. Tell me when the weapon goes away and the pencil comes out, because that's when you know it's no longer a crime. A police officer, by their definition, must intervene, and they're not the person that reports the crime in progress. They're the ones who are paid to stop it. It's called an intervention. Armed intervention. When there's a crime in progress, defined by somebody yelling, stop, help, police, court, jury, the cop responds. And they're our heroes. I want to honor them, and I want to worship our police force. And that's another thing that they're robbing me of. Now, I have to call them war pigs is unpatriotic. It goes against everything I stand for. To have this kind of rage against them, but they're robo-humps. They've lost their humanity for legislation. So have you, the sheeple. So have the ministers of injustice. So how the hell can I tell the two of you apart when you are both a great big blob of humanity that does not respect individuality, that you have joined to become part of the mass of the ministers of injustice? You, the sheeple, serve them with your legislation. And so I stand up for the law. I did nothing to no one, and I continue to do nothing to no one at my club every night at every table. So I wanted to make that clear to them. So when they came for me, they showed me the evidence against me. Pages of them watching me smoke weed. How the fuck can it be a crime? So here I am at the time of my arrest at my 420 friendly nightclub. And it speaks for itself.
The violent crime capital of America.
That's me.
For your tax dollars. Not a blunt, not a joint, not a gram, not a pill. Just $1 million worth of cops and nothing to show for it. That's why we're in the violent crime capital, kids. America's dumbest police force at work.
Now,
Now, Peters and two of his employees now face felony drug charges. They were arrested and hauled away down to 201 Poplar. Authorities began investigating in Bibrios back in November. Undercover officers say they made several drug buys since then. They found marijuana stashed in several places.
Now, that was in July. It began in November. All of that money on a sting operation watching a guy smoke weed. Oh, these reports are really telling. Oh, Subject Peters was over here, over there, everywhere, out to the limo smoking weed. And then what? Oh, and then I allowed customers to walk in and walk out. They were writing the story saying that people were driving up and then leaving and coming back. This was consistent with a drug spot or a nightclub. They were writing that I was doing over the hand-to-hand transactions of cash with people, consistent with a drug buy. Yeah, or a guy selling a beer in his bar. What? If you really have the suspicion, why didn't you come grab the hand? Why did you watch? Do you have reports that said, witness Subject Peters pull a girl over the table, smack her, beat her, and rape her? Then he dragged her out to the stole her car, then drove over to her house, burglarized her house. I mean, do you have reports like that? I'm kidding when I say that, but I don't know. They may have reports like that. We wanted to see if he was a serial killer, so we hunted him down after the first murder to watch him commit the next two so we could bust him as a serial killer. Is that going to be a police ploy now? Oh, God, I hope not. So, here I am using their evidence and testimony against them. And that is what I am telling so that you understand the narrative of where it comes from, where the seed of no mens rea begins, where the human rights lawful declaration of I am the law reigns supreme is in this very moment. When you're dealing with the entity who has a credo that they are to follow and they cannot. Because in order for them to follow their credo, they wouldn't be able to arrest me. And then they'd be out of business. And that's what they want. They must create chaos to sell control in order to grow. I come to them and take control by revealing the chaos. It's you. So I have been smoking pot in good faith every night, and they have not arrested me. And when they do, they use falsified reports and planted evidence and perjured testimony. Wait for it, because they're going to do it again in this case. But this goes back. This is in July of 2009, after a 9-month-long sting operation at a club that I owned for 11 months. So, yeah, right? Everybody had 6 months in the pool. I almost doubled it. So here they are now. The next voice you're going to hear is that of then Shelby County Sheriff, now Shelby County Mayor, Mark H. Luttrell Jr.
It was very open. There were observed uses of drugs within the establishment, right above the tables, rather flagrant and rather blatant.
Now, there is the duplicity. See, that's why you come here. You get to hear it for real. What's really real. Listen to that duplicity. He just said that there was drug use on every table. Now, if we were snorting cocaine on every table, they'd have arrested the first person that whipped out a line. We weren't shooting heroin at every table, but they want to say drugs because drugs sounds bad. If you look at the February 3rd arrest on the Memphis Shelby County Sheriff's page, the multi-agency gang unit, Magoo, and they said that Thorne Peters, marijuana activist, was arrested for narcotics and was found with drug paraphernalia. So the people that were reading it were saying, who were speaking up for me, the people who spoke against me said, no, he was also doing drugs. I said, no, he wasn't. Thorne doesn't do drugs. That's not him. No, it says right there he was doing drugs. When people watch this video, it's 420 nightclub bust. You can watch the whole thing, or you can see the whole story of me and up until this point at 15 minutes at Kingpin Thorne Peters. It's called at the episodes and podcast section, and it's called Proactivist. So check that out. But on thornpeters.com in the episodes and podcast section. That's why they go there. Who cares about YouTube? They get enough hits. And so, you see, this is why I create this documentation, so that we have the evidence against them. And here they are, in this case, you can see in the 420 Friendly Nightclub bust, that they were going to hold me with these falsified reports, planted evidence, and perjured testimony. 19 months. And after 19 months, they dropped the bogus drug dealer charges that there was no evidence for. They said there was undercover officers that made buys. It was one lowly snitch working off 72 drug fraud charges. A snitch who ended up stealing the drug money, shooting it up, and then ripping off the dealer's car to make her getaway during a controlled drug buy with her handlers Alex Poston and Robbie Jewell in the Shelby County Sheriff's Office. She was banging Detective Robbie Jewell because she was doing it with my barback guy, and he broke up with her because said that she was doing this dick named Robbie, and that she was selling drugs and getting room at the Plantation Inn, and he'd meet her over there. So I already knew about this guy even before he showed up. I didn't know his last name. It's Detective Robbie Jewell. And so here I am. So here's the sheriff. Now I want you to listen to him. Give us the evidence right here that's of no mens rea, is that they watched it go on rather flagrant and blatant for 9 months. How could you do that if it was a crime? And every step of the way we must use the evidence and testimony they provide against us to prove that it's not a crime. In this case here, when I was arrested for the February 3rd, 2015 bust, and when I got out on February the 11th, there was still 2 pounds of weed across the street. They didn't find the money I had tucked up under the low-end table. You watch the episode February 3rd, 2015 bust, and at thornpeters.com in the episodes and podcast section. And just so you can see the whole aftermath of the house, the dog's face blown up. They held the dog for 3 days, the Humane Society, and didn't even clean off all the boar thunder stinging his face where his eye had been blown out, was just seeping. For days, that dog had to lay there in that agony. And he walked it off, Muggles. He's returned to being the same champ he was. And but he's doing it for the rest of his life without an eye because of them. And I can only imagine the pain that he would have felt, and that there was no humane treatment for this animal. After all, he's a pit bull that belonged to a black drug dealer in the hood, according to them. And so I go every step of the way to use their evidence and testimony against them. So on February 11th, when I got out, I did a video waving my bags of weed, telling them I'm still dealing. Well, now, after we get to the event of pretrial, where I take them down and I say, let's get on with the guns. They drop the gun charges in pretrial. They say they want to raise my bail. For what? Because they wanted me remanded because I was still dealing weed, I said in the video. Really? Is that a crime to deal weed, you're saying? Then why aren't you arresting me for the contents of that video? If you had a video of me committing, a crime, where here I am raping said female. Oh, like that would be rape. Maybe one will show up. If it's the mail lady today, invite her in unsuspectedly. I'm going to show you what happens when you commit a crime on video. Fuck it, I'm going to violent offender prison. I get some of that rape time filed off on this one. I probably only end up doing an extra couple of years. Oh, wait a minute. I'm a drug case. I get 12 years. Rape doesn't carry that. Never mind. I got a free rape waiting for me. You know that? Because the 4 years I do on that one, big deal. I'm already going to be doing 12 on the other. So I got a freebie on my hands. Hey, I'll do better than the mail lady. She's not working. So send a private message to one of our unsuspectings and get her over here. I'm going for it. So what crime could I possibly commit on video? Show them the video and they'd not be able to arrest me for it. I know. It's a video of me not committing a crime. And so that's apparently what they had. So I went through there. They tried to have me remanded. Instead, they raised my bail $20,000, $20,000, $50,000 bail. That was after they dropped the guns. So I figured, I said, I've already paid for the guns that have been dropped. So I guess I've got that extra $20,000 covered, right? Because if I was behind bars and they dropped the guns, we'd be having a bail hearing to lower my bail. So here I am, shoving it down their throats, as per usual, that there's no mens rea. That if you have...
Okay, hang on.
Now, on one of my dates going to court, on a report date, I was seen toking up from a cigarillo that I declared was filled with cannabis. And that's funny, I get there, I have a lot of friends, admirers among the attorneys, who wish they could say and do what I do to these judges. And Scott Hall among them, Jason Matthews, and others. And they were all collected at the bottom of the stairs one day when I got there. It's like an event. The Kingpin's here. We knew you were coming today. And I said, they're talking about my videos. I said, do you have a particular favorite? And the one said, I really like the video of you toking up in front of 201 Poplar on 420, taking the bus. And the other guy says, I love the video you did this morning driving in smoking weed. That was so cool. That was just so ballsy. What it must be like to have that kingpin swing between your legs. Try it. All you have to do is stand up and be bold. You don't have to have any other measure than that. When you know that you're right, that your rights are being violated, you find every way you can to expose the fact that your rights are being violated. Because you never know which one of those homilies, which one of those pearls of wisdom will hit its mark and somebody says, yeah, you're right. Like with Eddie Grimes, Lefty, who is shills over there for that New Jersey weed man jackass, hollering about jury fuckification. Yeah, let's go get the lynch mob defense for potheads. Great idea. Let's tell them to jury nullification, please. Look the other way and don't follow the law. And treat me like a criminal that needs to be given a break, like I hung a Negro. Like I'm one of those Nambla chomos from the North American Man-Boy Love Association. I don't need nullification because I'm not offering you justification or rationalization. My messages to you is, go fuck yourself. That's what you can do. Now, I'll say it articulately. I'll be glib and verbose about it. But when I'm through talking, all that means is you now have your marching orders, man. Fuck off and die. So, on one of those days, they have evidence of me committing this crime again. Uh-oh. But they acted like it was a seminal event. Me driving in on that day in July after I've been here live daily. Apparently, smoking something out of this pipe in a way that you would not smoke tobacco. So on my way in, suddenly they've got a DA and, like now that you're doing a driving in the car to court, now you've really crossed the line. So they got the DA and a police officer there, a detective. And well, listen to this. This is from the court. I've just finished shish kebabbing them, proving my rights. And suddenly they want me to come back for a second.
Okay, hang on. Hang on, Mr. Peters.
Judge, apparently Mr. Peters was on his way to court today when he was recorded smoking pot.
Was that pot or a blunt cigarette?
I have a CD here, a detective from our office, Judge, here, who saw it.
I'd like to see the evidence of the scientific report that shows that there was actually marijuana in there and I was not stunting from my camera. I would love to see that evidence. Can you present that, please? Can you present the evidence of what I was smoking? Do you have any idea whatsoever, based on the scientific report and what you recovered from the scene of the crime, if I was smoking anything at all? Your Honor, this is why I asked you if I should wear 2 pairs of underwear today. This is the kind of duplicity that I'm dealing with.
He's the one on camera saying it.
I'm the one on camera saying it. If you can say anything. I watched Al Pacino sniff a mountain of cocaine in the movie. It's called Hollywood. So
right,
I was just styling for my crew, Your Honor.
Stop. Mr. Peters, I can't stop you from being on Facebook. Would you please tone it down?
Yes, ma'am. And I promise you for this week that I will. And my solemn promise, I will not smoke another cigarillo on camera.
Did you hear what I just said? I can promise you that for the rest of this week I will. It was Wednesday. And I won't smoke another cigarillo on camera. So the next time I was driving back, I did not smoke cannabis. I was eating a brownie though. And it was weird. I was eating this brownie, and suddenly I started seeing like trails flying through the sky. Aztec.
We'll see you Monday,
Thank you very much,
24th.
Why was that brownie so green?
And I also need to have the people that were testifying.
As I'm leaving them out the door, you see, I tell them, nice try.
I also need to have the people that were... Nice try. And I also need to have the people that were testifying. It said there was a Mr. Jones that testified about trying to remand me due to the alleged cannabis I was smoking. There was a Mr. Jones speaking with an officer that day. I need them to be able to testify because that's more evidence of no mens rea. If I was committing a crime on video, they would have arrested me instead of trying to have the court violate my 8th Amendment right, once again by remanding me. So that's more evidence for the jury. No mens rea, because otherwise, if I was committing a crime on video, right, you'd arrest me. That's the way that kind of works, Your Honor. I was trying to verify if the person speaking was Stephen Jones. I only see a Mr. Jones that was not named the other day trying to have me remanded. That was you.
Stephen Jones.
Okay, now I just need to verify. Is this the same Stephen Jones that was Amy Wyrick's charge partner that they let off the hook?
No.
Or is that a different Stephen Jones?
Better looking than Stephen Jones.
I'm sorry?
A lot better looking than Stephen Jones.
Oh, well, good for you then.
This
You
is
didn't-
Jeff Jones.
I saw a picture of him. You didn't have that
I
far
would
to
have
go.
done either
But-
of them, just for the record, but that's me.
Just a little banter.
If we could just have some sort of...
Sure. Bring me the Mr. Jones that was there. You're the one, so you're now testifying. I have to call him as a witness. He's testified in this trial.
Mr. Peters has to follow the rules of any other attorney.
You notice that moment right there. I must follow the rules and the rules and the rules. Why don't you explain to me how it is that I'm not being arrested? Tell me how it is. Or remanded is easy. Because when I said I have an 8th Amendment right to fair bail, they pulled out a criminal code. You call for the Constitution, they whip out state amendments, criminal codes, political policies. So what good is a Constitution that they don't follow? They have a loophole for the Constitution. 40-11818, which means that they can remand your bail for, well, whatever reason they want. In this case, it was because they had evidence that I was committing an ongoing criminal act. What criminal act? Of smoking weed? What criminal act? Of dealing weed? Well, there I was on the video. Why didn't you want to see it? Why didn't you arrest me for the content of the video as if I committed a crime? So why don't you accept that the evidence, but they won't. They don't have to have character, they have legislation. You, the sheeple, don't have to have character. You don't have to have humanity. You have fucking legislation that allows you to say things like, yeah, well, that guy's going to prison for being a violent offender, but, you know, that's this legislation. I know he didn't commit an act of violence. The guy didn't pick up a gun and use it against anyone, even though that's what it says on paper. Even though that's what our sacred courts have declared of me. Nobody cares. The very people who should care the most are the ones who care the least. Those good, decent sheeple. Those good tax-paying, church-going, God bless the USA, I voted for the right guy. Those people. It wouldn't have been any different under Hillary, so don't kid yourself. I was here the first time she was president, and it wasn't any different. It was worse. It was worse. The drug war under the Clintons took it next level. He should have fucking inhaled, blown her a shotgun. And so I have to go through all of this by continuing to expose their evidence against them. You, the sheeple, want to go to court and break new ground on the courthouse steps? Oh, so you're arrested. I want you to see yourself standing there arrested. You're naked in the fucking room spreading your asshole. Now you got to go answer to the court. What are you going to say? Your Honor, medicalized marijuana. It's okay for me to go free, Your Honor, because I'm one of the lucky sick people. Yeah, it's okay for me to sit at the front of the bus because I'm white. You don't see the parallel because you can't. It would require for you to have so much character when you have none. Because you seek to find the flock, to find character in God, instead of finding your individuality and declaring yourself to be a living fucking God. Won't you join me? We can all be prophets, we can all be living gods if all we do is grab between our legs, declare I am the law, and we will all be free. We will be free of the collective. The connective sets us free. The collective oppresses us. You, the sheeple with your pitchforks and torches and your flock-tard legislation, support the tyranny of prohibition. So millions of people's lives are decimated who've done nothing to no one. When I say that I'm an innocent citizen, an innocent victim, people laugh. You were dealing pot on Facebook. And besides, I don't check any of the worthy boxes. I've never served my country killing gooks and Unc and Haji on behalf of Uncle Scan. I'm not a dying soccer mom. I'm not a little girl with seizures. I don't check any of the boxes. I'm the unworthy one. I'm the pot-smoking hedonist who loves smoking hot pot with smoking hot women. I smoke pot to arouse my nipples for bigger, better, longer-lasting hard-ons. I can't get on the list. I'm never on the list. There isn't to be a list. Everybody's on my list because there's no list. Legislation exists for one purpose, to declare that others will not qualify for freedom. And yet you sign legislation. Oh, yeah, I don't know. But we're going to get out there for SR 788, and I made a beautiful caduceus on my website with pot leaves around it to show my support for medical marijuana. The point is, for all of you who are out there, is you are now the winged messengers. You have heard the word. You know the truth, that individuality and power resides within, not from without. Go forth and tell all, everywhere you are. They're not hard to find, because anytime you're not here, you are there. It's, I am for everyone and everyone is against me. That is how the world stands on this date. You must let the others know, because somewhere out there is somebody else like you who came from somewhere out there listening to that nonsense from Normal. Look at Mistress Wren. I mean, who can take your eyes off Mistress Wren? Every day in the Freedom Cast at 2:20 p.m. Eastern Time. And she was a former shill for Normal, getting herself out there, sending people to their doom at Normal. And go over there, get your Normal lawyer to get you a good deal, to take a guilty plea and follow legislation. Legislation is not the law. It cannot be the law, because it can be changed. One day Negroes could sit at the front of the bus, and the next day could not sit at the front of the bus, and the next day they could. That is the timing of progress. From the 1 second where you can't to the 1 second that you no longer are prohibited. That's 1 second. What you, the sheeple, clock as slow and steady progress is the speed of stupid. That was the speed from Pace v. Alabama in 1883 to Loving v. Virginia in 1967 to end the prohibition against Negroes and Caucasians being married. But that was in 1883, was the first time that a Negro and a Caucasian stood up for that right. Wow. So we're 5 years into America at that point. And it would be 84 years before anyone challenged it. How long will it be before the next person stands up and follows in the footsteps of Tennessee v. Peters, which will become Peters v. United States? How long will it be before the world? Remember, in all these cases, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled Negroes and Caucasians can't get together. It's bestiality. They'll make mongrel babies. God wants us to put us on opposite ends of the planet. That was the Supreme Court. When these dim bulbs out here laugh and say, oh, they got you, ha, we told you had mens rea. That jury didn't see it your way. Do you stand on the side of Bubba juries that sent Negroes to jail for fucking white women if they were lucky enough to at least to have even not been lynched? I mean, if they were fortunate enough to even get to court? You stand on the side of lynch mobs when you pick up legislation. So you have to find the character in the heart to go forth and be unpopular and tell these sheeple to drag their heads out of their fucking asses and stop sending lambs to the slaughter. I go to court and say, I am the law. They scoff, they mock, they roll their eyes, they wave their hand. Go watch the episode on thornpeters.com in the episodes and podcast section called The Normal Nitwit, John Merrick. Watch this sheeple just defend his position by waving me off. We have legislation. This is why Normal exists. Because in 1969, Timothy Leary, the groovy guru, Mr. Tune In, Turn On, and Drop Out, went to the Supreme Court and fought the Marijuana Tax Stamp Act and defeated it with the Constitution, which did not set us free. He fought a constitutional amendment, and they corrected the constitutional amendment against your right against self-incrimination. In order to get the stamp, you had to have weed. In order to have weed, you had to have the stamp. So that means that you broke the law in order to comply with the law. You can't do that. So they just took it off of any list and put it on the Controlled Drug Substances Act, which says you can't have it at all. And that is where it has remained now for 48 years. Stuck on stupid. Not slow and steady progress as Normal sells. Normal sells. Look at all of our many victories. Look at all the many people we've sent home. They've created a system to send some home. They send you home with a deal. They give you a chance to go spend money with the entity to buy pot like a Lortab and pay sin taxes to raise money in your communities for more cops to go look for everybody else with drugs and prostitution and strip clubs and those who are not using their cannabis legally, as it is with those who use Lortabs. Two people do the same thing. One is a criminal, one is a customer. Those are the very words that brought Edward Grimes over and turned him around on Eddie Fauchon and his jury fuckification nonsense. And after denouncing and laughing with that big sausage bag that he sits next to every day, Wayne something or rather, Wayne Bernini, And no menstruate. That's great. Pearls before swine. This is uranium before amoebas. And yet, Lefty Grimes. Remember that line, somebody. That's the first time I've used it. Getting ready for the book, so I'm gearing up all the real cool stuff. This goes way beyond pearls before swine. And so, it resonated with him. We don't know what words or phrase will resonate with the next individual. That they're going to see the light and accept that they are free at birth, not slave to legislation. I mean, this is a very simple message. If you've been charged with a crime, I want you to look at your affidavit. You see where it says name of victim? If there's not an actual person's name, a person, a property, or a puppy, get out. That's no mens rea. That's what will open the doors for everybody. But legislating your medicalized marijuana for some of the people, some of the time, in certain places under particular conditions, leaves us all in prison. But the beautiful part of it is while you're selling humanity down the drain and you are making certain that we will all go to prison and stay there, you get to feel like a fucking activist. I'm out there trying to free people. My people. Let my people go, have said all who have come before me. Who said Gandhi, or Moses, or Martin Luther King Jr., or Nelson Mandela. And when you add up all the people on earth they represented, out of all the people, they were only representing about that many. Martin Luther King didn't even have the complete support of all the Negroes in America that made up 12% of America. And that's just in America. And there are many Negroes in the North that didn't need that Martin Luther King was selling because they had found success by making lives for themselves outside of the process. So these Negroes did not want to see that busing come to their schools either, because they had taken all their time to get up and get away from that. So who they represented, it didn't represent very many people at all on the planet. But when I speak, I represent every last single solitary person now living, yet to be born. I am free at birth, not slave to legislation. I am the law. The individual answers to the individual, not the entity. The entity answers to the individual. See that? The entity is an instrument of the individual, and the trumpet cannot play itself. Now I'm done. Go ahead, turn off. You know everything there is. You want to know? I'm going to take you to law school today. You're now going to know everything there is to know about law. Are you ready? I am the law. You've now graduated. See, and you don't get a sheeple skin, yet you get to have wisdom. Now you know I am the law. Now it all makes sense. Oh, okay, so that's why legal and illegal can't work. As I asked the lady officer on my jury, so that's why you come here. That's why you're here to listen to this. This is where it's happening. I'm not telling you what I think. I'm not telling you what we talked about today in Pot Farm. I'm telling you this is what happened here in court. As I asked the lady officer who was on my jury, one of two police officers, plus the wife of another police officer. I loved it. Who better to bring this message to? I gave her, as I told her, the opportunity to go back and tell your tribe you no longer have to be trifling ass bandits. I'm setting you free to be heroes. But you have to have the courage to take it. Look at you. You're waste. And so meat bags, just meat bags. When they were awake, they were meat bags. And so I said to her, are people arrested for doing that which is legal? She said, no. I said, well, then if sodomy is legal and I sodomize you, how can you tell me it's illegal? Is it legal or is it illegal? And she gets this smug look on her little bird face. She goes, is that I'm shitting my pants look? That's the shark face. Because that would be rape. Right. You got it right, but you said it wrong. Yes, it would be rape. And as we learned in the case of Colorado v. Kobe Bean Bryant, who declares it to be a rape? The entity or the individual? You're through talking now. You see? Oh, that's how I pose my questions. As even Judge Carter said at the end, he goes, okay, the yelling's over. Ha ha ha. If that were only true. You know what? If everybody else will say no mens rea, I am the law, then I'll promise you this. I won't say another word again. I have to do like the guy in the Twilight Zone. I actually have my throat cut. But I do it. If you would say the words, I won't have to. It's that simple. So when somebody makes an argument, they're an asshole. because an argument is for someone who doesn't have the wisdom to make a point or the character to accept the point. And the point is that I'm free at birth, not slave to legislation. Now, in order for you to defeat that, don't come back and, oh, medical marijuana, blah, blah, blah. That's an argument for an asshole. Oh, decriminalize it for people with this much weed. Well, what about people with that much weed? You fuck off. So, now all you have to do is, you just simply say, I am the law, no mens rea. Now, you represent everyone by representing yourself. When I play you this, when I go to that court, I am this aggressive, so that you can hear that there's no need to be meek. These are your carjackers. I'm not going to be meek to my carjacker. These people are out to destroy us. When we have right on our side, don't hold back. Put it in their faces. Now, I want you to listen to me as I go down the path, making it clear to them there's no mens rea, using only their evidence and testimony against them. Not standing in that court like a jackass saying, oh, medicalize my marijuana. The point or the counterpoint. The point is I am free at birth, not slave to legislation. The counterpoint would be, no, Mr. Peters, you're slave at birth. You are slave to legislation at birth. So make that point, and then I'm done. Did I miss it? If that's true, if that is so, if that is the definition of humanity, then the court will have to articulate it that way. No more hiding behind it with this, oh, we've got legislation as insulation. I'm just following orders, Heil Hitler. We're not going that way. That court will have to articulate to me, as it did in Pace v. Alabama, that Negroes and Caucasians cannot mate because it will make mongrel babies. It's bestiality. You can't fuck your dog either. Say it. I want it on the record. Because as wrong as you are, and the longer it takes for humanity to catch up to me, the greater I look at 1,000 years. And that's how I've lived my life, on the 1,000-year plan. I have no consideration for this life beyond enjoyment. I am only here to leave behind a clear record of freedom for humanity by being the first fully free human being. Do you know what the definition of victory was for the trial of the millennium? To get this on the record, not to convince a jury one way or the other. Who cares? It's now on the record. This is the narrative to follow the law, and now you have no choice but to go to court and follow the law. As fellow humans, we have an obligation to follow the law even when the entity does not. During crusades, during the Inquisition, during Jim Crow, there were those who continued to stand up and say, I've got the right to order a fucking sandwich. I took a bath, I got the money. That's all I needed to do. Feed me. Don't take my money out the back door without giving me the service through the front door. So even though they were legislated against through prohibition, these people continued to stand up. They continued to fuck. They continued to live their lives free until they were finally free. So I am the first to go to the court, go through the process of no mens rea, and they use the guns to taint it. So when I go to sentencing tomorrow, I've got to unring that bell, and I've got to make my victory so clear that to ignore it, you're going to have to stuff your head so deep up the asshole of sheeple that there will be a point of no return. After tomorrow, it will be very clear. There's no mens rea, and I am the law. You learn to say that, boy, you'll be just as powerful as me. Won't make your prick any bigger, but hey, it'll feel bigger, and that's really kind of...
He would like to subpoena somebody. He has the power to do that. He doesn't get to order this court or anybody in this court or any district attorney to do anything for him. He can file appropriate motions, and he can subpoena, and he can keep his rhetoric to things that are permissible and relevant to this proceeding.
This man has just testified in this trial. Therefore, he is compelled to testify in front of the jury that he could not make an arrest based on that video because no crime was committed. So you're the one who introduced him. I now get to cross-examine him. Why did she get to speak when I speak?
Okay.
So
again, I would ask the court to instruct Mr. Peters to follow the rules of procedure and decorum and not to address me personally. He can address his comments to the court. There has been no motion to suppress any evidence. So that is not before this court. And Mr. Peters might consider going to law school before he uses fancy terms that he doesn't understand.
Mr. Peters understands all the terms such as writ of mandamus, people v. Clayton, and no mens rea.
Okay, hang on. Hang on, Mr.
Trying to have the court violate my Eighth Amendment right, once again by remanding me. So that's more evidence for the jury, no mens rea, because otherwise if I was committed. So you're the one who introduced...
Now, I go to the court to follow the law, and I make them follow the law by presenting them with the law, and they don't know what to do with it. When I say law, they say legislation. Anytime you stand for any system that leads to a system, you stand for the oppression of humanity through a prohibition. So I've made it as simple as possible, and I have to go to prison till everybody catches up. We're up to 420 dedicated supplicants that know anything about this. Millions more do not. On April 3rd, 2018, tomorrow, go to your courthouse, even if you're the only one. Send up the flare. You don't need to go out there and toke up. You need to go there and talk up. No mens rea, I am the law. No mens rea, I am the law. No mens rea, I am the law. And so, when you do that, we appreciate you. Humanity will appreciate you. And so, that is the mantra. In fact, if you go to the Freedom Fund at thornpeters.com, I will be able to, see this, send you a freedom band that says, I am the law. Since you put it on a freedom band, you know it's true. And on the back, if you have to go to court, you tell them hashtag no mens rea. We put out hashtag no mens rea because that leads directly to what we're doing here. So put it out everywhere in all of your narratives. Hashtag no mens rea. Hashtag no mens rea. Everywhere you go out there with these, I figured it out, and we have the human straw man and the 28th Amendment and all this other nonsense about medicalizing and HIPAA. There will be those who will denounce the mens rea way because they'll say, he went to prison. So after Pace v. Alabama, I guess those Negroes should have... It took 84 years. Do you think blacks and whites would be having sex today if not for Loving v. Virginia? They'd still be being arrested in the Jim Crow South. These things don't simply end, and legislation never ends them. And signing up for a congressional act doesn't make a goddamn bit of difference. The Civil Rights Bill was signed in 1964. Negroes and Caucasians were prohibited from marrying for 3 more years. And then these Jim Crow states wouldn't actually perform the marriage in their state. They'd still have to go to other states because they wouldn't perform the marriages for another decade. The same thing with homosexuals. So I go to the court to make it clear that I am the law. And the way you defeat the court is simply by standing up and using the law. That's the only way we could go. When we all do it, we all go free.
With this court, if you needed something.
For you to put this case off in 2.2. I mean, we're 29 months in. We've got every conflict of interest and scheduling conflicts. Enough is enough. No mens rea. I'm bringing Your Honor right now the very opportunity to be the first to swing the gavel that says we are free from prohibition. You can either be the first or the last, and we can all go free. But you can smirk. But
I'm not smirking. I'm trying not to laugh.
But Judge Doug Bench has already said that he feels bad for the 211 medical marijuana patients he put away. And Judge Neil Gorsuch, who is now the Supreme Court Justice, has already said there's no mens rea for this.
A Supreme Court Justice, Neil Gorsuch, has written in an opinion that there's no mens rea for weed and drugs and prostitution, selling your body parts, killing yourself to take a ride on a comet, sadomasochistic sex, prostitution, all of the above. He's waiting for me at the Supreme Court. So I'm going to get there, go through all this, I get to the Supreme Court, and I'm going to go, hey, there's the guy right there. Hey, could you help me out for a second? Listen, I'm kind of like, I'm like a junior high school dropout dopehead, you know what I'm saying? But this law thing, you seem to get a handle on it. We tell them about that no mens rea thing they got going there. Yeah, like that right there. Yeah, can I get out of here now? I mean, I'm not even going to... Why am I going to speak? You're sitting right there. You tell him. Fuck.
You can follow a Supreme Court Justice.
Here it comes.
To follow the law. Your Honor, I am the law. Your Honor, I am the law. Your Honor, I am the law.
Do you understand what that moment speaks to? That in human history, as we've lined up before the entity, to stand there and make arguments when we've done nothing to no one to explain why we believed in God as we did or had the sex we wanted to. And as in the case of Loving v. Virginia, the man said, tell the court, I love my wife. How much more do you need to beg? Do you hear the sound of a beggar? You think I'm going there to beg them for a goddamn thing? Not on behalf of humanity, I won't. Oh, it's difficult not to get in there and beg for your own ass. I'm not looking forward to spending my time with a fucking Q-tip down my prick. I'm not looking forward to being in prison, surrounded by, criminals with hatred and rage in their heart, who look at humanity as nothing more than a resource. What you got and what they can get from you. So I have to fight the right not to go beg for myself. I could have months ago gotten the 3-year probation deal. You know, the one that the lawyers call a victory? Oh, you're facing 12 years, you got a 3-year probation deal. You must really be good at lawyering. Wish you could be my lawyer. No mens rea. When the first lawyer that stands up and says it. Matthew Pappas, and you can hear him in the interview with me. He said it before. Believe it. There's no mens rea. It applies to everyone everywhere. Don't take the dollar figure to make medical marijuana arguments, or the prison doors will stay shut. There are people facing years, doing years, and decades over weed. When you stand up for a system, you keep them there. You're a coward and you say, they'll just open up the door and say, fall deeper and deeper into our trap, and there you go. Because you want a pat on your woolly heads. So that is all what is wasting for me tomorrow. But for right now, here at the last Freedom Cast, Lady L, bring me the winner's bowl.
Okay.
I am going to get ready to give away our next party time clock. See this? Every time you go to the Freedom Fund at thornpeters.com, keep the home fires blazing every time you've seen us smoke weed here. And for all of these vignettes from the court, come from those who have sent to the Freedom Fund at thornpeters.com. And I'm going to need you to keep it up, because Lady L is going to be here all alone in the hood, and she's going to need you to help keep the home fires blazing. Loss of consortium, loss of companionship.
No one but puppies.
I'm trying. She's going to go, yeah, you're right. God, I can't wait for this guy to be gone. Now I can run things. She will be here at the Freedom Cast every day. Don't you go anywhere. This is my last Freedom Cast. You know, I'll just be handing it over to Lady L. She'll be right here each and every day at 4:20 p.m. Central Time, and she'll be over in the Freedom Cast of the Kingpin, Thorne Peters, our group, at 4:20 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, before that, Mistress Wren will be there at 2:20 p.m. Eastern Time, and I'll be looking to develop others of you who want to put out the word to stand up and offer the narrative. Get in there. Just think of 24 hours a day we have people in there going on, no mens rea, no mens rea, no mens rea. Everywhere you go, tell them no mens rea. Because while the other sheep will bleat, one of them, like many of you are here from that, amid the din you heard and said, this actually makes sense. All the rest of this nonsense begs them to give us something. I'm not a beggar. I don't go to court to beg them for something and plead. I demand that you give me back my rights, you freedom thief. So, every time you go there, you're going to get one of these freedom bands. They're awesome. For contributions of $25 or more, you get the freedom band and the freedom pin. And for contributions of $100 or more, you get all that. And the party clock. Look at that. See that? Now, here's the premise. I don't want to wait 12 hours a day for our next party. Fuck that. 420 twice a day. Bullshit. Every 65 minutes when the hands join on a clock with a clock that has hands, this is a clock with hands, has actually numbers on it, so you're not going to be confused. It's just going to give you a new way of looking at time. You're going to be like, you're going to look at the clock and say, what time is it? You're going to know 2:10. Now, it'll actually teach some people how to tell time. So here you have it. Every 65 minutes when hands join, puff, puff, pass. It's awesome. The people have got it, said it's great, it's beautiful. And it's my creation. It's one of one. This clock will say on it, hashtag no mens rea. Now, every day we will reach into the contribution jars. I will do one more time and choose somebody to go into the winner's circle. And at the end of the month, next month again, we'll just do it again on the next second, since today's the second. So 1 month from today, we will be sending another party time clock out into the world. Right now, let's see who gets one more shot into the winner's circle. Then I'm going to call a name. If you're not here, you can't win. So, ha. So, here we go. I can't look. I don't care. All right. Here you go. Now, you're going into the winner's circle, which means you have a chance. And one more time, we have... Mr. Frederick Strello. There you are. So into the winner's circle you go, and we're going to bring over Lady L for this one. And because, you know, with my reputation, it's always going to seem tainted, hinky, jaded. You know, like we choose the one woman who said, God, I'd fuck you for that clock, and then she wins. It's like, yeah, nobody's going to buy that, right? Okay, it was more than one woman, just to be clear. And it wasn't for the, oh, no, it was, oh, I'm sorry, it was for the cock. I misunderstood it. It says cock, not clock. Never mind, honey. You're still in. Now, here, I'm keeping up here so they can, all right, you can't see.
I can't see, I'll look away. Okay.
Yeah, because who knows what she's been offered. Yeah, right.
I went right.
Yeah, not clock, cock.
Here we go.
Okay, let's see it.
I don't know who it is.
I don't know who it is either until I read it, but we have ourselves, who is on the clock? Mr. G. Forshee. Gregory Forshee, it is now, here it is, it's 5:36 here in the realm, 6:36 Eastern Time, and call out to him. Let us know, we need to hear from you in 15 minutes. You have 15 minutes, so I'll tell you what, so at 6:52 Eastern, call out Mr. Greg Forshee over there, and that's fantastic. Yay, so we'll be looking for you. You know, as I get ready to go to prison tomorrow, and I reflect back on all the things that happened at the trial of the millennium, and it was epic. It was awesome. The years that went by in between that, the personal growth, and coming here and doing the Freedom Cast. And it is all, I'm going to sit down in my prison cell and sort it all out. It'll be coming out in my book called Fully Free from Prison. And I will be fully free from prison. So I have to go to prison in order to be fully free. You're fully free when you stand up for yourself and humanity. It's not enough to stand up for yourself until you stand up for every last single person on earth. And that would seem impossible because we're all so different. Ah, there he is. Well, submit. All right, you're the winner. Everybody, let's hear it for GG, Mr. Greg Forshee. All right. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
No, I mean, appreciate. That's why you keep hearing his name so often. Some bitch. And he country and mother. And we do appreciate it. But I have the right to come here and tell you something. When I offer you the opportunity to go to the Freedom Fund, thank me. Because I'm giving you a chance to do something for the freedom of humanity. This isn't about me. You can care less about me. This is about, I have made myself the quest for this cause. And Lady L turned in her whole life on the central coast of California as a frosty, waspy, beloved enchantress, who's the man she was seeing at the time she came around me, who just passed away. She'd be sitting pretty with, a couple $1 million worth of property and hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash. And when he passed away, he forgot to take her name off something somewhere. We got $500, and she's celebrated by getting us weed from the hood. We are all in here. We are all in with our hearts and our souls. And that's why when you, other than Shona Banda, who was speaking and telling me live free or die and get behind her, she took the deal. I didn't take the deal. I couldn't take the deal and then have asked you to support me to get a deal for myself. You are here to help me in my quest for the cause to free humanity from prohibition. And that is not only your opportunity, it's your responsibility. Everybody on earth owes me a fucking bag of weed. So, I'm not humble about it at all. You are getting a service. I sing for my supper and I present and I provide. But I'm going to prison and I will not relent until the last prohibition prisoner is free. I can't go home until they all go home. That's what it was in Vietnam. It's called the Fink deal. You went home out of turn. If you went home before the person who was shot down before you, you were a Fink. Well, no one's ever going to hang that label on me. So, what you get here is the reality. This is the front lines for the lawful offensive of the end of prohibition against humanity. And it's a war that's never been fought. I am the first on that trail because everybody else has stood up for their people. I don't have to be your people. You don't have to be mine. You can stand against me all you want and it will not change the fact that I am the law. And there is no mens rea. And I've done nothing to no one. And I am being persecuted. I still stand up for you. You don't have to be worthy. That's my whole point. I came to that court as I do to you. to be unworthy as I can. I've shared with you my ignorance and bigotry. I didn't say I didn't possess it. That in order to be here, you have to be some sort of ascended being. No, I just have a clever way with words. I am just as ignorant and bigoted, or more so than most. I've only grown enough wisdom to understand that who cares what you fucking think or feel or believe, or what your opinions may be. Why the hell would I care about that? Who cares? I don't. You shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to be burdened with the opinions and the beliefs and the outlooks and the understandings of others. So I go back over all of this for all that I have been through during this event for the trial of the millennium. The many countdown days, believing that was the day that was going to be it. That's talk about PTSD, Jack. You know, you're just sitting here, you're doing all these countdowns, and miraculously, in a few times, I've been reprieved. Tomorrow, they couldn't allow me to remain free on bail pending an appeal. And I want you to remember this. They could also still yet give me probation. But I know for certain that tomorrow, they're not going to do any of that. Even when I tell you now that the judge is predisposed toward doing that. I know human nature. I had a random encounter with Judge J. Robert Carter Jr. when I went by for the transcripts, which I found out that a trial that long, it's pro forma, it's going to take months before these transcripts are ready. And that's why when you make your appeal, he signs it. And I happened to go over there to see him. He was walking through the other side of the glass. If he was getting ready to send me to prison on Tuesday, tomorrow, he would have taken the time to stop, turn, smile, walk out. Hey, it's the Kingpin. And we kibitz like we would have if he was a person who had embraced his humanity instead of being a member of the Ministers of Injustice. And when I meet them and I see that they can be redeemed, all they have to do is, of course, at first, they have to confess their crimes against humanity. They can then be restored to humanity. They have to be remorseful. Then they can be rehabilitated. But there we were convincing. Now, if he's getting ready to send me to prison for 12 years, he wouldn't have any expectation we're going to be at all chummy. He couldn't wait to come out and tell me I'd missed my calling as a lawyer. And I told him I accepted my calling as a prophet. Now you must. He'll get another bite at the apple tomorrow, Judge J. Robert Carter Jr., or whichever one of his minions tuning in. But I will not be able to accept that because I must be proactive tomorrow. That's all I've got to say. But I'm not going quietly into that good night, nor will I be committing any egregious act. No, I'm a violent, felonious prisoner, I get it. There will be no act of disgrace, or violence, or outrage. But I'm going to bring the house down tomorrow. I have to. What I'm about to do is on behalf of my dedicated supplicants, those of you who will have to stand in a sense of defeat, as if I were defeated at the trial of the millennium, that I was then shown, aha, we told you that, Negro, you have no rights. Yep. I need to give you a better narrative. See, I could go home tomorrow, but I won't. Because of you. You have to have this narrative in order to stand up for what comes next. But I could be home right back here tomorrow. I want you to remember that. Remember that. So that nobody can ever question my legitimacy. I'm not a poser. And I'm not a front runner. And I'm not here styling. I have dedicated my life, my heart, my chutzpah, my brains and my balls to the freedom of humanity. There's nothing else for me. So, you'd all just stand up and say I'm the law and get the hell out of there tomorrow too, you know. That's the other way. Everybody, every last goddamn one of you, go to your courthouse. And not just tomorrow. Tomorrow's day one, not day last. April 3rd begins the No Men's Railway March. And we march every day till they accept the No Men's Railway. Hashtag No Men's Ray. Hashtag No Men's Ray. Hashtag No Men's Ray. Hashtag No Men's Ray. Every day at the White House during Watergate, they drove around the White House every day blowing their horns out the world. They were ready to jump out the fucking windows over there. Tomorrow you will be making your first rounds of calls to the governor of Tennessee, to the national media news. It's time for us to get proactive. This is the story in all the world. History will record whatever the hell Donald Trump is tweeting about with, oh yes, no, next week is the week Rocket Man's going to blow up the world. Yeah, okay. Anyway, history will record that that was minutia. That the most seminal moment unfolding on the planet right now, known only to this handful of us, is right here. No one else has ever stood up for all humanity. And so I stand up for all humanity against most of the world. Even those who smoke weed are mostly against me. That's not the way to do it. We need legislation. We need to line up and sign up to be good sheeple. We don't want to lose our wool in order to smoke weed. And so it's a dichotomy. But as I go past and go through all of it, the part of it that stands out to me most profoundly is all the people that were not there. All the people that I had counted on to be there that would have brought such substantive testimony to the stand. Starting with my very own Sherry Baum, who was the bartender at my nightclub, who was also arrested with me. Her bail was $10,000, and they said that she sold the pills to the snitch while I wasn't even there. They had a 9-month-long sting operation at my strip club, at my 420 Friendly nightclub. Damn near a strip club, but not quite. And so they had a 9-month-long sting operation, and on the night that they come in for the sting, I'm not even there. They said my bartender pointed to the pills that were behind the bar and let the snitch behind the bar. Sherry Bomb? Let anyone behind her bar? Fat chance. Yeah, druggy whore, go behind my bar. Never would have happened. Not happening. So, she was too afraid to be there. She didn't want to ruffle their feathers, even though they put her life in jeopardy. Put her on the news. She was Exhibit A. As I said to Major Mike McCusker, the ADA who was prosecuting the case by then, is that you don't even understand your own case 19 months later. I'm going to go into trial facing 15 years in prison as a front for drug trafficking, and your whole evidence is that my bartender committed the transaction while I wasn't there. And my bartender has already said she wasn't dealing for me, and that nobody was dealing at all. So if you're going to challenge her, I'm going to be the one sitting back there watching. Your case isn't even against me. So after 19 months of wrongful incarceration and a malicious prosecution, they dropped the front for drug trafficking charges, where I was facing 15 years in prison, and then proceeded to jury trial for a possession of cannabis charge, wait for it, where I was not in possession of cannabis. And so, don't worry, the jury found me guilty anyway. But why in the world would you take me to a jury trial where I'm facing 11 months, 29 days, and I've got 19 months credit? Well, let's listen to me in court. On one of the report dates here for the trial of the millennium, Major Mike McCusker happened to be sitting right there. So here we are again in court, live court audio, of how bombastic and bold I am as I point them out and call them out for their crimes. I leave no stone unturned.
I mean, Major Mike McCusker right here is one of the individuals who's listed in the 19 people in the criminal conspiracy, because he took a case to trial where I had 19 months credit toward an 11-month, 29-day possession of pot charge. And he told James DeRoss at the 4th Esquire, my elbow counsel, who's filing an affidavit, who's sending in, to say that he told him that Amy wanted us to go to trial because she was afraid I would sue her when I would not take an outward plea. Now, that is the duplicity of America's most corrupt district attorney's office. And if you find that to be rhetoric, then you're going to be buried in rhetoric, because all this case is about is the prohibition against humanity and the corruption of this court. And I've been in touch with the Justice Department. I have a control number, and they are now watching this case because of the unbelievable piles of evidence of their public corruption.
Thank you, Mr. Peters.
Thank you, Judge Paul Stahan.
There we have it. Right in their faces, right in the court, slapping them down with the evidence. But Sherry Baum was afraid to be there to tell them what it was like to be hauled out on the news in handcuffs, in front of your family on the news, calling each other going, did you just see Mom was arrested on the news? A woman with a clean record who had grown up in that community, humiliated. You watch the episode 420 Nightclubs Bust at thornpeters.com in the episodes and podcast section. And you see a woman with her head hanging down, terrorized by those cameras. She was afraid to be there. She didn't want to get them upset with her. This is part of the tyranny, that they intimidate us from standing up against them. They intimidate witnesses all the time. And so she did not want to be there. I think to myself of how much differently it would have gone if the Tipton County 3, those individuals whose cases have been thrown out, based on handing in that motion to dismiss. Lady L took them right from this living room to there. Mordecai Barnaby, Emily Seaton, Jordan Luthauser, all handed in that paperwork to the Tipton County Courthouse. There's only 2 judges there. Shut the place down. Shut the place down. They kicked them out the side door. They had no other means to, they had no defense for themselves. So they had to let these people go. The one judge, and Lady L, you were there, describe what you saw.
Well, the judge came unglued. He was holding the motion to dismiss all pot bus up in his hand, flinging it around, going, I've seen people in jail that have tried to put this in. And the bailiffs were chiming in. Everybody in the courthouse was upset, slamming doors. It was wonderful to see. It was like watching popcorn pop at the theater. Everybody just came unglued. And then they told her to sit down, and then they dismissed it. They told her her pot bus would not be proceeded on.
Out the side door. In the case of Mordecai Barnaby, they literally this is a girl who's trying to be a guy. And when you're a girl and for a guy's name you choose Mordecai, it's pretty cool. And so I literally escorted him out the side door. Out, you figured the actual side door. So they don't want the contamination. None of them, of course, wanted to stand up and say anything because they didn't want to get their cases reopened or in trouble or yada boom or whatever it might be. For many years, you'll see a man known to us as a good friend, a gentleman toker, a man who after 40 years of not smoking weed had seen me through his sons and came over here and was a true friend. He's a man pushing 70 years old. Took back the cannabis back to those who were in his little retirement community. It's like an episode of Cocoon. And he was going to be there all along. He's always talked about how he wanted to be there. Stand up and say that it was unchristian. And he really wanted to make it. Came over, always talking about it. Feels good to talk about it because you're part of it. I'm going to really make a difference. But when the day came, I've got to drive a friend over here or for there. You know, I put him in a cab. No show. Just think if that jury could have heard a 67-year-old man's testimony like them. So in order to criminalize me, you have to criminalize him. He's the one that I committed the crime upon or to or for or with. And he would be able to describe that the actus reus, was positive, that it was beneficial. Do you go back to your carjacker again and again to be carjacked? I won't say rape because sometimes, you know. But do you go back to be brutalized and abused day after day? So now all this bold talk, the big moment comes to stand up there. And I'm going to tell him and I'm going to show him how to go drive a friend around to a doctor's appointment. And so what if you had never been born? How would that individual get to there? What difference does that make? So it was an excuse, because when the big moment came, you go dry. Hey, it's okay. But when people count on you, I look into people's eyes to see how much of it is belief and how much of it they're hyped up with. Even here in the realm, I hear people, God, I want to do that. But how many of you tomorrow, if you took a bust, would actually stand up and say, fuck it, you know what? I am the law. No mens rea. Bring me my jury. I am prepared to proceed pro se to jury trial with the lawful offensive of no mens rea and the Human Rights Declaration of I am the law. And I do it in the name of the kingpin Thorne Peters. I've earned that. I have a page at thornpeters.com that says no mens rea. You or yours are arrested or in prison. Click that button. It's all there. And I'm going to be adding new videos to that over the next week, as I'm going to be creating them now, and they will be put up there then for our consumption. How to go through voir dire. You will actually be able to go into court and just play this audio, this video, and say, this speaks for me. So I become your virtual advocate. I can take you down the process. I am reaching out to the attorneys by name. For those of you who saw yesterday's Freedom Cast, for those of you who didn't, go check it out. And you can hear me with a man who's working with Michael Minardi, who had represented Shona Banda, Matthew Pappas, who had represented Christopher Lewandowski, the United States Marine who was facing life in prison. Matthew Pappas is also the attorney that represented that dispensary where the cops came in and busted the place. You can see the video, and they're all eating the weed up. They're all eating up the edibles. And you have heard the interview with Matthew Pappas, attorney at law, here in the realm. You can listen to it at the episodes and podcast section, where he became proselytized, where I told him that you are calling a defeat a victory. When your client stands up and says, I'm guilty of committing a crime, it's a defeat. It's a defeat. I turned down defeat, not victory. Victory wasn't getting a 3-year probation deal, which, by the way, would be unavailable to somebody else with my amount of weed who was dealing weed, no testing, and they would be willing for me to move the fuck to a state where I could smoke weed, you know, like California, where on Hollywood and Vine awaits me deja vu showgirls, and I never have to come back to show my face on Facebook again, because I will have my face buried in the millennial hotties. I mean, hey, that was my life, and I had restored it beyond my wildest dreams, and all I could think of was getting the hell out of there to get back here. And if you asked me tomorrow if I'd rather be going to the strip club on Hollywood and Vine or to prison to free humanity, well, I won't answer it for you. I'll let you answer it. Let's see how many of you really know who I am and what I'm about. Because the answer is it's not even close. One is not even a consideration. I'll give you a hint. I wouldn't be here if it was my choice to be at the strip club. They still write me, when are you coming back? Could you come back for a weekend? Can Baba come back for a visit? We'd love to have you DJ for us again. And all I did was hammer on these females and tell them how worthless they were to their profession and how difficult they were to work with and what a disappointment they were. And then they stopped being a disappointment. I have all that going. I know if I want popularity, why do I have to come over here to be called every kind of a you know the names. So I don't have to go do this. I go be Mr. Popular. But I'm driven. I can't live my life another way and find any value in it. So I'm going to prison tomorrow. My eyes wide open, my Kardashian ass closed. So I want you to listen. My belief is, this is me with Matthew Pappas, attorney at law. I have got to reach out because our next goal is to shame these charlatans into standing up for the law and stop shilling for legislation. Until a lawyer does it, it's not going to count. One of my points that I'm going to be making tomorrow is that I was denied counsel. Now, as your own attorney, you cannot go back and say you had ineffective counsel because you could have gotten a lawyer. One would be appointed to you. So you cannot represent yourself and then say I had ineffective counsel. I didn't have ineffective counsel. I was denied counsel because there was no lawyer that would follow the law. And as an American citizen, it is my duty to follow the law. And I cannot go to court and allow an attorney that I know is going to lie to represent me by declaring that I've committed a criminal act according to legislation and therefore must bow and scrape and plead to a court. I am the law. There's no mens rea. Look at your own fucking law book. So you won't follow the law, you criminal? Then I have to go to court to follow the law and allow their criminal acts to continue. And that jury became nothing more than co-conspirators. As I told them, there is nothing you can do, no deliberation you could possibly have that would declare that I'm a criminal. But you can co-sign for the greatest crime against humanity ever. I mean, it was a great speech. It's too bad most of them weren't awake for it. It was like, it's like an episode of Green Acres, you know. I'm like Eddie Albert speechifying there with the drum and fife playing for Arnold Ziffel and his far less intelligent partner, Fred Ziffel. I mean, this is just really pitiful. But it's on the record. I kind of likened it to Elvis in Las Vegas in the 1950s. Elvis went to Las Vegas in the 1950s and played at the Frontier Hotel. And he bombed. That audience of elderly people did not take to the gyrating Elvis the Pelvis thing. So he's out there playing his music. He's playing hard because the audience is just going, Yeah, he had a 1-month billing, and they cut it down to 2 weeks. So I'm not talking about 70s Elvis, where he rebuilt the town. I'm talking about 50s Elvis, who went there. They said the atomic-powered singer bombed. And so what's great about it is you get this incredible album of Elvis live that you could hear the music. It was so well recorded, and there's no cheering. Usually in the Elvis early recordings, you can't hear anything. As Scotty Moore, his guitarist, said, it was like you jumped into a pool. You were just wait. He said, I couldn't hear what they were playing or singing. He said, I used to just watch Elvis's ass to know where we were in the song. That's all. I go, he's doing that. Okay, then we're here. And so that's what we have here at this case, is a clear record of how and why the individual. When I brought up the agent of the system from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, who had taken the weed in for analysis, and I said to him, if there was no prohibition against drugs, you'd be out of a job, wouldn't you? He said, yes. You bet you would be. You're fired. That's what I told him. Judge J. Robert Carter Jr. is bragging about his 1,000 cases. I'll get rid of 2 out of every 3 of those for you. And how many thousands never make it upstairs? As we heard in that interview, the high cost of pot bust from Paul Hagerman, the ADA. And he said that in the high cost of pot busts, that he there was no problem with getting potheads through because most of them took deals downstairs. They're handled downstairs, where you line up and you sign up and you take your deal. And you say that you're guilty, and you allow your attorney to get you a really good deal and call it a victory. You're fighting legislation. It is against the law for a court to proceed with legislation that is called politically motivated judicial bias. And they would never do it in the condition of a crime. But they do it when you don't commit a crime. They are the ones who are prohibiting you, persecuting, crucifying, inquisiting, and so it must end. So I go to court to end the tyranny. And so it would have been fantastic if they could have seen one of their own, a person that would have been at all sympathetic to him. Another one, she's out there as a pot activist. She's here in Memphis, who comes to me, and she would come to me blubbering about her sicknesses and her endless ills. Oh, God, do I hate to talk to potheads, and their whole conversation is their bleeding asshole, and the ulcers in your tummy, and your PTSD, and you're fucked up on this, and you're dying from that, boo-hoo. Man, clams on the half shell and roller skates. I smoke weed so I don't have to go through that. Why do I have to justify to somebody that I'm trying to smoke weed so I don't have bloody stool or whatever comes from it? Lisa Montgomery, she's just a blubbering, simpering pus bag. Oh, Thorne, I'm in so much pain. Can I smoke some weed with you? And all the time cultivating her to say that you have a powerful story if you will accept it. If you sick sheeple out there want to set the tone, you stand up against your medicalized marijuana. What courage it would take to be here today, sick and in pain, hovering over. And all you needed was some weed to ease that suffering, to be able to want to eat some food. And if you sign here on the dotted line, we will give you some food. We will give you your weed. But you have to declare that we get to put millions of people in prison for you to have your weed. Hard, isn't it? I understand that. It was very hard for former presidential nominee, for the Republican nominee, John S. McCain III. The grandson of John S. McCain Sr., a 4-star admiral. The son of John S. McCain Jr., a 4-star admiral who was Commander-in-Chief Pacific. And now there's a John S. McCain IV, who was also graduated in Annapolis, as all the John S. McCains have done. This is America's Navy's first family. During Vietnam, then Lieutenant Commander John S. McCain was shot down and was at the Hanoi Hilton. And he would be there for over 5 years of his life. His father, during that time, was the Commander-in-Chief Pacific of the United States Navy. He was in command of the officers who were imprisoned. The winners, every last one of them. That's a whole other thing. So McCain, because he was the son of a 4-star admiral, was told that for propaganda, we want you to go home. He said no. I will not take the fake deal. Now, even his commanding officers at the prison said, you're injured. Ejecting that plane, he got smashed, he got bayoneted when they captured him, his arm was broken and twisted. He would endure years of torture. And every day and any day, he could have gone home. They wanted him to go home. They beat him to make him go home, and he stayed. Yet you think that Barack Hussein, Jihad, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, Obama would have gone through that? Yeah, right. Show me where to sign. So I understand the courage it takes. And here's my greater point. We as individuals should not have to be endowed with great courage to live. We shouldn't have to sign on dotted lines in ways that will harm ourselves, our choices to do harm to ourselves, to get ourselves help, deny ourselves help, or do harm to others. Nobody should be placed in that position. No mens rea takes us out of that position. I am the law. There's no mens rea. That means that nobody need to be brave beyond their capacity again. That means that nobody has to find the content of character to stand up to a jury and say, I'm going to be the one to set the Negro free. That never should have taken place. So if Lisa Montgomery had come there to show that my activity not only did not do harm, but brought her relief from her sadness and her sickness, when the time came after smoking up my weed to talk about what made me so important is that I was selling high-grade weed at low-grade prices. That was the difference. She wasn't there at the trial of the millennium. On the very day of the morning she was supposed to come with me to give that jury the chance to hear a sympathetic tale, one that they could perhaps relate to, and saying to them that because she had been so proselytized by my message that she would not be able to, in good faith, sign up for a medicalized marijuana license when others would suffer because of it. On that day she said, I will not go there because you are against medical marijuana patients, and you say bad things about medical marijuana patients. I stand up for everybody. That would include medical marijuana patients. Medical marijuana patients are putting me in prison. So why would I stand up for the people that are putting me in prison and keeping all the rest of our friends indeed in prison? Why would I stand up for the enemies and the cowards who take the fake deal that says, give me mine and I don't give a fuck about anybody else? I could have taken my probation deal and got out of Dodge, but I can't because I am true to my quest for the cause. And my greater point is that you shouldn't have to be dedicated to a quest for the cause, nor should I. My quest for the cause right now should be working on that second 1,000 women. If I could bang 1,000 women after 50, that would really put me up there. The 1,000 women before I was 40, well, come on, that's expected when you're this good looking and well hung in Christ. Anyway, everyone see you work at the strip club. Very few of the chicks I was with, I used to tell my strippers most of the time, honey, don't ruin sex for me. I have to leave here and go be with human women, so don't fuck it up. So I had a clear goal in mind. This wasn't it. But it became this way. It's not because they busted me at the club, because when they busted me at the club, I made it clear that I was already coming. I had already gone onto my blog and said, I'm going to take a freedom bust on April 20th, 4/20 in 2010. But I was in jail fighting those bogus charges. So when I got out in 2011, on April 20th, I went to the courthouse and I took a bus for an apple filled with pot. 0.0043 grams of pot. They sent the indictment to the wrong address, a building that had been torn down, but they came to arrest me at the right address. So they put me in a position, if I didn't plead guilty, they would have just held me in jail for a year and then dropped the case. So there was no reason, I'm not a kamikaze, so I was ready to regroup, but then they were only going to arrest me for disturbing the peace. They wouldn't arrest me for the pot. So on April 20th, 2014, I laid out a plan whereby I would come with felony weight to get busted. And so instead I did the can of bag challenge, which I got 52 ounces of weed that day for my 52nd birthday. So this has been the odyssey all the way through. And all the way through there have been people who've been caught up in it. They're going to be there. And the people that I'm going to be there just to hang out in the front, well, that's groovy. That's okay, who cares? But the people that had direct testimony in this case that would have made the difference to stand up and show them a baseline of who we're talking about. I'm easy. I'm there in my robes and my... So why'd you wear a suit? Why would I? Why would I show them any respect for their pro forma? Why would I? There's the whole key. I'm not going to bow and scrape, nor should you. I'm not going to put on a suit and go over and beg my carjacker for my carjack back. I'm going to put on my all black, my wool cap, and I'm going to slither through the window late at night, and that fuck is going to be dead. That's the way you roll. I go to that court to defend all people for all time. And so this is what I'm up against, is the fact that it scares people to be part of this. It's easy to come here and sound bold. We see these rallies where 5,000 people show up, 5 people get arrested, and 4,995 people head for the exits. And 5 people are stuck with pot busts that they end up pleading guilty to. So what the fuck good is your rally? We already got enough people who are getting busted for weed charges. So for all of these sins, I have to go to prison tomorrow. And I will be gone ostensibly for years. At best, a few, at worst, several. And there could come a point of no return, not just for the shaking and the jacking, but it's my intention to take a pot bust every day. Every day. Another pot bust. Every day. That I will take to jury trial. As one, I will do what many cannot do. So, I have to stand tall for those who don't. But I'll tell you what, we have one individual here who was here for gavel to gavel for the trial of the millennium. And he is our graphics, near-death graphics guy that you see, who puts up the website at thornpeters.com. Bravo, brother. Thank you for being a tech geek. And so you were there for it all. You got to be a spectator there. And what was your greatest impression of all you saw?
Oh, geez. I'm supposed to do this in 1 or 2 paragraphs, but...
Prefacing, preambles.
I think it's a great display of confidence in one's freedom and rights. And it's pretty impressive to see anybody be able to stand up in that environment, in that setting, under those circumstances, you know, and perform like that, and hold to his own, and be able to stand up for what's right, regardless of what you think about him or, you know, the court or whatever. You know, it's just what's right. And yeah, to see that kind of endurance, and to see, well, basically this kind of martyrdom, you know, if you want to call it that in a way. But
comes out that way.
A very planned and strategized and enduring martyrdom, you know. But it's not like death, because this is only the beginning of it.
Well, I say to you and he and I, we met back in our jail days, so you've been there while I was writing the first book, scribbling on paper, going through this. So you've been there for the full arc.
Yeah.
As somebody who's been there, caught up with it. And to those who watch in here, did I make you proud?
I've seen you come a long way in 8 years. I've seen you putting a plan together, and acting a plan, and, you know, skeptical as I was at first. Now my eyes have been open to some things, you know. I was not ready to see some of these things, mainly the corruption, you know, around here, but this is repeated all over the country and all over the world. And until somebody has the balls to throw themselves into the machine and say, hey, motherfuckers, look, we got a problem here. Look at this chaos. Look at this chaos. I'm making you look at the chaos.
What was your favorite moment of the event? Hey, Lady L, come on in for a sec.
Favorite moment? I guess, well, you know, right off the bat, seeing you stand up to the judge and having to have the jury sent out 2 or 3 times, you know, you see right away, okay, there's something real going on here. I see a system, the powers that be here locally, you know, scared and trying to dodge and run, play Where's Waldo, and whatever they can get away with, you know. And to see you call it out and say, nah, I see what's going on, and I'm not going to let you get away with that.
Wasn't it great when he actually said, was it like a moment of shock? I look back at you guys when he said, you can't use one officer's testimony to impeach the other.
Oh.
I mean...
Stop the presses.
That was unbelievable. I mean, you had to hear it to believe it, that they could be that corrupt. And you saw Lady L up there. How did she do on there for us? Hey, look who's here.
Lady L was most impressive, of course.
Yes, indeed. And now you're watching this and you've seen this. You're from this community. And you've seen every step of the way as we're doing the website, when you go to the conspiracy page. Isn't that just wowing? I mean, we sit here and you're going through it, you're seeing it. You know, when someone's telling you, look, they're out to get me, man. They're falsifying reports, man. And you're like, oh, God, okay, yeah, right. But when you see it, and you say at first you were skeptical, what did you see as it unfolded?
Well, like I said, that they just keep dodging and running. Okay, just, you know, optically, as someone on the outside looking in, honestly, it just looks to me like somebody thought they saw a shot to get you out of the picture, get you out of the scene around here, I guess to keep you from exposing everything you know. But, and so they took a shot, they took a tip, and just falsified whatever papers, you know, or story they needed to come and take you out. Maybe, you know, literally even. Who's to
well,
say?
we heard the story of Detective Jeremy Drury, the company executioner that came here, who tried to have a pot dealer executed because they had a snitch that wouldn't give up wouldn't snitch for him and lie. But now, when you see all of that and you were there gavel to gavel. One of two individuals who were there for the whole event, for the gavel to gavel event of it. What did you think of the jury?
The jury. I think it was typical of every jury you see up there. You know, they are programmed to, you know, basically, as you say, you know, they see it as church, and there's a certain set of rules and a certain set of mindset they have to have. And, you know, everybody's irritated. They don't want to be there. They want to go home. And therefore, it's easy to justify, you know, let's just really not get into the real issue here. Let's just do let's just follow the law, what we're supposed to do so we can go home. And not ready to face some of this stuff, you know. When they were awake. Yeah, when they were awake, but you were greatly restrained in what you were able to say to them anyway. So,
well, yeah, but how would you declare? How would you categorize the way I treated the jury?
Well, you treated the jury exactly how they needed to be treated.
Let's tell them.
Sheeple.
Right.
Yeah, well, he treated them with, you know, wake up, it's your money.
No, I mean literally wake up.
Wake up, dog.
We're walking over there, snapping in their faces. You see, I went in there to be strong for us all. We don't have to go in there and be weak and meek and be polite and scrape and be cowed and bowed, not by the judge, not by the jury. Fuck them all. I am the law. You're not going to violate me and then make me bow down to you. I'm not dropping my briefs and bending over the bar and spreading for you. If you want to fuck me, you better come with it. Because I'm going to have it all for you. As well, you can tell them about that part.
Oh, the last 24 hours have been
Oh, don't worry. You got another 12 hours. So that's why I got all my work done. Now you're my gig.
We party so we can just not even think about tomorrow.
No, but tomorrow. It's 6 o'clock tonight. You're worried about going to work tomorrow? No. I just got on this. Hey, I got the whole night. It's going to be strip club night.
Can I tell you the part
tell them all about
the most amazing?
Yes.
The trial. At the
trial.
Oh,
okay. The trial. Okay.
The trial. That they kept sending the jury out. This judge sent out the jury an unprecedented number of times, starting with the minute they put their butts in the seat.
10 seconds, and the juror's out. When the last juror came in and sat down, and Carter's over there, takes off his glasses to give him the welcome to my jury. Welcome.
The benevolent judge.
The benevolent judge. And as soon as he get ready to say his first thing to him, as soon as the last one sits down, he goes, as far as he got. Your Honor, I want you to make clear to the potential members of this jury that if they understand that prohibition is the crime, they have no need to excuse themselves in this jury. Don't make it clear, there'll be a Batson challenge. The jury, I'm going to have to ask to excuse you.
Yeah. The jury got irritated. And
I was irritated.
They got irritated with the kingpin, not the judge.
But my favorite part is when he kept holding me in contempt, and then not actually taking me into custody. See, I knew they didn't want to take me into custody. So when I pushed him, he says, I hold you in contempt. I absolutely hold you in contempt.
You're pushing it.
And the cop comes walking over to me, and he said, should I take him into custody? I said, wait for it. So who was in control in that room?
You were always in control. Because there's no way they can hide from violating our human rights. It shows they can do whatever they want with their robes around their desks, but they can't.
But
hide.
you listened to the Freedom Cast, and you've all heard it. We're here. So when you heard me up there, did I stay true to that narrative?
Very much so. And when you were on the stand testifying yourself, it was wonderful. It was just that you got it all in, and I'm waiting for the transcripts eagerly. We've got to get the transcripts of the court.
As far as your lawyer performance, that was top notch. It was Law and Order level.
Right, it was like that great character. Wouldn't you love to see? That's your character actor you're going to bring, who shakes everything up. That lawyer who's all over the place, making those points that they have that questions their logic, that exposes that there's no logic in their version of the law, whereas law is short for logic in my world.
The other thing that was amazing was how many DAs, public defenders, and attorneys were filling the gallery. The gallery was filled with these attorneys wanting to see the kingpin.
And that's why the next day they made sure they played Where's Waldo with the jury, told them that it was going to be after lunch. So when we were sitting there waiting for the deliberation, all the PDs are coming down and going, well, what happened? So they did it before lunch. So the judge continued to try to keep that jury. And how about with all those cops? They had like 15 cops sitting in there just to kick up the state. It had nothing to do with the case. So every time you walked in or out, you'd have to walk through a gauntlet of all these cops. Were they saying stuff to you?
I thought there was a crime scene in there. There must have been so many cops all over the place. You know, with the tape.
Yeah, they were breathing down the neck, very obviously, of anybody sitting in the gallery for the kingpin. They were micromanaging anyone there, making sure that you didn't take out a phone or twitch.
Let me see you push the button.
Yeah, he actually made Foley do certain things with his phone. It was very micromanaged. The police were very intimidating, and the rest of the gallery they played hard and fast and loose with even when the trial would be on.
And for all the people that were going to come through and give this valid testimony, in the end, it was the mayor of Memphrica, Leo Agawat, the owner of the guns and a blood brother, and our very own Lady L. Go fuck yourself, that's what.
That's to the
and when you go to thornpeters.com, right up there along the road, you can read all about the mayor of Memphrica, Agawat. And there's a Lady L page, and you keep clicking enough buttons, you're going to get to see her naked. Then and now, Miss Easy Rider 1974, and the spread. As a matter of fact, and that from 1974, they used it again. That very picture of all the pictures. They put that picture of her on the motorcycle in the 25-year edition, and so you'll see the pictures. It's like the same chick, man, 40 years later.
Thank you.
Thank you. I can't wait to see you when you're pushing 70. Get out when you're 69. How fortuitous.
I've set a goal to be in better shape when he is free than I am now.
Yeah, well, I don't care what shape you're in. You're going to get your brain cleaned out.
I know.
You see, this is part of it as well. It's the loss of consortium. Is that we're here and we're all jolly now. Tomorrow night she's going to be here alone in the hood of Memphrica, which for her is 1,000,000 miles away from her home, who she is and what she's about, the people in her community she cannot hang out and meet with. And so this is what our commitment looks like. This is a vibrant, exciting, freaktastic female. She's going to be there in mothballs for those years there. And, and so my point is that this is what it looks like. What we're doing is so that nobody else have to do this in order to be free. That freedom belongs to us already, that we cannot allow it to be stolen from us. And so here's this amazing woman who has turned her life inside out over a guy she saw on Facebook who was standing out in front of a court, smoking pot out of an apple, going that if we all came down today to smoke weed, we'd all be free tomorrow. See?
Button.
I
All
am
you
the law.
gotta do is put on the button. You don't even have to go and smoke the weed.
No, that's right. Yeah, don't go out there and smoke the weed. I just need everybody to go to your courthouses and get proactive. I'm bringing you opportunities to be proactive. Go to your courthouse every day. Sitting around on Facebook supporting legislation, gathering out there to sign away our rights, it's a waste of time. Take it to the courthouse. Do not get yourself arrested. Do not smoke weed. You just go out there with your emblem, your signature, your sign. I have made up a sign that I'm going to put up for you to be able to go and get so that you can carry the poster with you. I am the law, no man's right, or you make your own. But make yourselves heard, even if you're one. Don't wait for a group to join you. That never happens. It was like when I was trying to put my music together, trying to get the piano player, the bass player, the guitar player, a sax guy, Oh, the piano player's girlfriend's freaked out again. Oh, he's drugged up. So what I did was I bought him, brought him in, paid him, and sent him home. Make this as individual as you can, because this is about individuality, the force of the individual. And that is what I have projected right on through. That I am powerful enough to take on the whole entity, the whole evil empire, because I am the law. Like the man in Tiananmen Square standing in front of the tank. The only way you can defeat me is to run me over. But if you follow the law and you respect my human rights, then you have to stand down, no matter that you're the tank and I'm the person. The person is more powerful than the tank. The person is more powerful than the entity. And so I want you to come and make sure you visit in with Lady L every day. You're going to hear from me from prison as much as we hear from you at the Freedom Fund. These are going to be costs. Now, when I go to prison, I'm not trying to get tchotchkes and chi-chis. I don't need that. I'm going to get a TV and my clippers. I'm not buying their food. I'll eat their jail food. I don't care about that. I'm not buying their clothes on commissary. All of that finance that comes to the Freedom Fund is to make certain that this woman right here is taken care of. That she has what she needs in order to take care of some of the puppies. There's 3 of them. I don't expect all of them to make it.
They all must survive.
But
Everyone.
it's putting a lot of pressure on people out there, you know.
Puppy.
But I made it easy. I've got a $6,000 hood home here that costs $27 a month. So I didn't want to have to, I couldn't keep her in leisure.
We need the puppies. They keep us safe.
The puppies are needed to keep her safe. And so this way my goal was to have to do all of this. Then I'd have 4 walls around me when I come out. This woman turned her life inside out. Not because she was just so overwhelmed. Well, that too. Well, the dick whipping is one thing.
No.
But that's not enough to have turned your life inside out. You're not going to sell your home over some Lothario guy. And to invest in my what? Wardrobe? Yeah, let's see. So I can like have a really cool car. So I can be styling on you. So, you know, this woman is the quite viable woman here. As a matter of fact, if I go over by her Facebook page, seems that everybody wants what? That's Muggles. So, that's right. You'll receive a folder on the history of the puppy whose life you saved when you go to the Freedom Fund at ThornePeters.com.
This is our puppy that survived being blasted by the police in the eye.
Old one eye.
This is Muggles. My puppy forever. I love him. Sorry.
But we also have Bud, who is our radar dog,
Excuse me.
and he's the one that saves our life. He's the dog that circles and he sings a song. He's a cantor, so we know who's here. And one night he sang the song that said, "Bad people are on your porch with a gun." And sure enough, there were. And so that's the dog that saved our life. And then there's Doobie. He's just a squash. We just love him.
And he digs holes. He's a
the-
horrible dog.
He's a half wolf.
But we love him.
And so it's been very hard for me this last month. I can't really even go near my guys. You know, I just...
he cheers up.
Those ones, I can't get near them. I don't have any defense for that one. You know, I just keep banging your brains out. I'm not. I just dehumanize you so I can deal with it. It's not about you. It's about the pussy. Guys, here's a tip. Bang the hell out of your female and she will tap out and call in others.
That's true.
And what's this lovely
uncle. Uncle.
So, and I got, you know what this lovely lady did for me as a go-away present? She contacted a couple of lovely millennial-type hotties who are barely legal and got them to spend a month and put their bush razor away. And I got to see brand spanking this and that group, brand hotties in their natural, original form with bush. Now that, you see,
it's natural. It was there for a
I
reason.
know, right? Hey,
Natural.
you're preaching to the choir.
Hey, that's my generation.
That's right. See, that's right. I know. It was my job was to be the snatch trimmer at the strip club to keep everybody, you know, right time. See, I learned that to keep my beard. See, this is what we do here. We frolic festively, not go to prison and take Q-tips down the prick. And see, for those who are violent offenders who commit horrible acts, they've got that coming. Shove a fucking pole up their ass. And when I hear that the carjacker gets shanked and has shanked the child molester, we cheer. Shankings and murders in prison should be a celebration. But half the time you're getting some pot smoker dude who done nothing to nobody, you know, wow. And so I have to do this so that nobody else ever has to do it again. And this is what I walk away from and I leave we frolic festively. This is what we do around here. It's mania and madness. And so it gives us, 6 years, the cruise has never ended.
Geez.
This is what we do. We spend all of our time together. We're constantly with each other. And it's where we want to be. So we enjoy and have bonded with each other in a way. So the loss, not just for me going to prison, that's the one. But here, when you look up and look around and I'm not suddenly behind you, grabbing you, throwing you over or something.
Stealth, he's like right there all of a sudden. Yeah, I'll have post-traumatic stress
really.
for a while.
Your going to be on the swivel. And then the stress will begin when you look around and no one's there.
I'm going to have to put on your music and your Freedom Cast just to make sure you're still here. Your voice booming. Because it's going to be so quiet.
And in your lives, I want to continue to be heard. That's why the Freedom Cast will continue. Because it's not self-aggrandizing to me. It's not about, I'm trying to be popular. I want to go viral. I've never wanted to be viral in my fucking life. Why would I want to start now? But what's important is, just do like the Memphis media did. Say, a guy catfished a deputy. Don't need to use my name. The hell am I? My name is #NoMensRight. Just say #NoMensRight everywhere. Let the story unfold. It doesn't have to be about whether or not anybody wants to join me. I'm not trying to get you to join anything. You are to go find the center of the universe within you, where you are the law, where you are all powerful, where you get to be the kingpin of your universe as I am. I went to court to set the record straight, to show you the power that everything I've said in this realm and the way that I have said it is exactly how I spoke in court. Am I right?
And then some. Yes.
I always said, people say, oh, you better not go in there and talk to your jury that way. The way you talk to people here. I said, you kidding? That's the jury. I'm not going to have any reason to speak to them nicely. I know they're not going to my Freedom Fund. So I'm far kinder to you, the sheeple here, just in case you want to change over. That jury, fuck that jury. People say, well, why did you let 3 cops, 2 cops and a cop's wife on your jury? Because I have said to you from the beginning that the jury's verdict didn't matter. Why would I suddenly care then about the jury? You must be true to your own ethos and credo. The fact that there were 2 cops on there was the greatest opportunity. One of the cops, the little Asian dude, was the foreman. And then the cop's wife. And it was like, wow, how perfect. But I gave them the opportunity, and they deserve the opportunity to go straight. These cops could have ended it. They could have followed the path of Justice Neil Gorsuch and Neil Franklin, the police chief, and they were all saying that this war on drugs, it's ruining the spirit. It makes people hate us. I want to cheer for the cop. I will not rest until every cop is our hero, and that cannot happen until our freedom is respected. If our freedom is not respected, then they're war pigs. They are unworthy of our consideration. Piss in that cup of coffee you give them. They support evil. Yeah, they run into the gunfire for us. And they're brave and noble. And the next minute they're hassling somebody for weed. Or they take some woman that they think and suspect of drugs and use it as a means to frisk her. Anyway, they just grab her on the side of the road and strip her fucking pants.
Don't try this with the police. But you just manhandle him. Grab him by the crotch.
I am your cop. I may not be able to wait till we finish this before I get started. I'm really on borrowed time here. Time here in the Freedom Cast is time away from, well, we'll call it frolicking.
Yeah.
I live to love life. I have loved the hell out of my life. If any of you guys have the opportunity to live my life, believe that. You go to bed tonight, you fantasize whatever you want, you're not even going to be close to the reality. That's who I am. One day I'm marching along the streets of Memphis, broke, I'm down to it. Not only is it so bad that I'm giving plasma in order to have money, but I get hit by a car and I can't even give plasma anymore. So that teaches you don't be, damn, we're going to give plasma. Well, there was a day when I sure wished I could have given plasma for that $240 a month. Now I've really had it. I'm used up in this town. I can't go here to the strip clubs and get that $100,000 a year job again because I'm persona non grata. The ADA, we're public enemy 1A. It just depends which day it is. Tomorrow it's me. Then after that it'll be the strip clubs again, but then before they know it, I'll be back. So my good buddy Steve Cooper, senior and junior, you'll see Coop here in the Freedom Cast visit at times. Might be here now. What's up, brother? Hired me not once but twice to work here. You hand me a microphone, and one of your DJs is about to become a doorman. That's the way it works. Unless Sam Kennison's coming through that door, and it's me. And I'll give Sam a run for his money. But that loud thing he had going, that really takes the top. So I can't get a job in that industry here. Now I don't know what to do. I need a Vine. And look at that. I'd get an email 8 days after the car hits me at Freedom. A lady sends me a friend request that says, "Hello, hero, be a friend."
Yeah. Hello, hero, be a friend.
Did I live up to that?
You have lived up to that and more.
And what did I tell you about my condition when you spoke with me?
You told me that you were down and out, that you had been hit by a car, that you were walking the streets of Memphis having to give plasma to get money, and that was no longer able to do that. And you were trying to get your book finished and published at the time. And I said to you, hey, I'll help you with that book. I definitely want to see your word out there. I see you as a hero. And you said to me, save it for the Travel to California Fund.
The first thing when I told you is then I said that I'm crawling now.
Yep. But if you help me, I'll stand up and I'll carry us. And he not only meant just me and him and the puppies, he meant all of us with no mens rea. It frees us all.
And so there I was in your little realm. There was nothing going on there. I can't sit up there and live off some female. There was nothing going on in your town. So I went to Hollywood and made myself homeless again. Yeah. I was shitting in a garbage can on Hollywood Boulevard, man, one day. The next day I was the showgirl DJ at Deja Vu Showgirls. Yeah. So I called her up and I said, I need some suits for Monday because you get the 3 for $199 deal. And I said, because I'm going to audition for the job. Well, by the time Monday came around, I was the guy auditioning the others. Because my luck walked by and the DJ didn't show up and they put me in, coach. And so, you can reach out for help, but you have to show them this is how it benefits you. So I've surely made back the loan on those suits, right? Yeah. If you think there's anything more for me to work off, then that would be the time.
Oh, I'm keeping a list. I've got a list. It's a honeydew.
Yeah. Well, you see, this is the reality of what it looks like. This is the reality that our lives, as we know it tomorrow, will end for years. Mm-hmm. And we're ready. I'm looking forward to the quest for the cause, that I know what comes next, that I'm going to be in a position to reach out to these people. And this time when I'm in jail, you remember when I was in jail last time, I was buried alive. There was nobody around me. Mm-hmm. And this time I'll be able to reach out to our near-death experience guy to keep the website going. And Lady L will be here.
Yes.
And she will be holding down the fort. Help her keep the home fires blazing. And I'd like for you to make certain that she gets to smoke some weed every day. Because not only does she smoke it for the joy of it, she's a 65-year-old woman. And when you don't smoke the weed, when I go to jail, when I go to prison, I'm going to feel the loss of that cannabis to my body. I don't want her to feel the loss of cannabis to hers. So make certain that we look out for her. This is our treasure. This is my hero.
Oh, thank you.
I wouldn't be here. I would be going through it, but it would have been so different. I would have gotten one of these houses and lived here on a dirt floor in the dark, crawling out from under it like a rock. That was my dedication. And that is why I don't owe her anything. I don't have to justify our lives. I gave her the opportunity to be more worthy in life than she would ever have been in any other reality. And she had to have the character to accept that reality. To walk away from what would be a very lucrative, comfortable life on the Central Coast. To be here in the hood of Memphis, waiting for my call from prison, or if it comes, and hoping that she's not just sitting here on that fixed income that leaves her broke. Here in the hood with nothing. I want her to be taken care of. That I press to you. I want you. I'll go take care of humanity. You take care of my beloved enchantress here. Because she deserves it. All high respect. I don't know a lot of people on earth that would do what she's done. I can't imagine I would have found one of them. Just when I needed that individual the most. Because I was about to take my last gasp. I was about to go under. I could not come up here. And I couldn't figure out what reality would lead to my path going to California.
It doesn't seem very likely.
But now here we are. And now it's all clear that I couldn't have done this without you.
I wouldn't be here. To be here, I am counting at least 7 people I know of who are free. And for me, that justifies my whole epitaph. That's everything to do with my future. I'm praying that it's going to be thousands upon thousands more. But for now, a cushy life on the Central Coast is nothing compared to the comfort I get from counting the people that have gone free using no mens rea. Nobody else is going to do this time. It has to be funded by those of us mom and pop in the trenches warriors. I'm sorry I didn't call you pop. So back to the kingdom. I'm gonna be punished. All right.
You stay. Right. And that's the key to it right there. 7 people so far that have invoked the lawful offensive of no mens rea, and many more on the precipice. Our very own Herb Stonewell and others, and Cody Jones, and Ron Jones, and those who are right now, Dr. Feelsgood. There are those standing up right now. They have to keep standing up, and I have to make it clear, the definition of that victory is standing up. The result in this time and era of primitive inquisition, some of you might be able to take some kind of a deal and slide out the door. Others of you will not. That is why none of us can take the Fink deal ever again. Don't stand up for legislation, even if that legislation can set you free, because it sets you free at the expense of everyone else. And going free at the expense of everyone else is not freedom. That's slavery.
It's cowardice.
Yes.
I hate to say that. It's cowardice to take any other deal than no mens rea.
So I want you to look for me bright and early in the morning before court. I will be going to court at 9 a.m. Central Time. That's 10 a.m. Eastern Time. I want you to pay careful attention right here at on or about that time. I'm telling you now, you're going to want to see what comes next as I go to the court to turn myself in to be sent to prison. You cannot miss what comes next, because it's going to be very important to us all to understand the narrative of how and why to deploy the lawful offensive of no mens rea. They have circumvented the law with legislation, and the jury allowed that to happen. That's not justice. So I must go get justice. And I'm going to get justice tomorrow. Not long from now, but tomorrow there will be justice. I will put us on the collision course with justice tomorrow, when I am there to be sentenced as a violent offender. I will turn the tables on the money changers once again to make it clear that I am the law and that there's no mens rea. So I want you all to come back here each and every day at 4:20 p.m. Central Time here at Thorne Peters Classic. Lady L will be over at the Freedom Cast of the Kingpin Thorne Peters every day at 4:20 p.m. Eastern Time, letting you know what's coming next. I'm going to want you out there with a voice to contact and call in here to the realm.
Call me.
Because she's going to have that hour a day, and she's going to be doing it every day, and she's going to be doing it for more years than I've done it. So we're going to need your help to continue to keep the realm going. We have Mistress Wren at 2:20 p.m. Eastern Time.
Thank you.
In the Freedom Cast of the Kingpin Thorne Peters.
Mistress
Go over
Wren.
there, put all your friends there. These are calls to action. Take them. This is the path of proactivism. This is not a one-dimensional entertainment experience. This is really real reality TV unfolding at you. This is real-life drama. I am now putting the legal industrial complex on trial for its crimes against humanity. They don't want to confess. And they're proving to be elusive because you, the sheep, will keep creating loopholes for them to escape through. So I have to keep closing them down by first shutting down you, the sheeple, so I can then move along to, here, hit the button up there, so that I can move along to the actual facts of the case, which is the law. So I want you to listen to me, making it clear to the court.
How close were the weapons that were located to the drugs?
Objection to the term drugs, Your Honor. No drugs were found in the house. This is marijuana. Unless the state can tell me the name of the person who invented marijuana. Pot is not a drug. Refer to it as pot, please.
Refer to it as its legal name, which is marijuana.
Very well.
Refer to it as its legal name, which is marijuana.
I believe the state has proved that Mr. Peters was in possession of the drugs based on constructive possession. His fingerprints were
The marijuana, please.
It's not a drug.
Please ask if I didn't interrupt him during his closing, if I may do my
The judge
closing.
has already said that it's called marijuana. I will not be categorized as a drug addict.
I'm sorry, I misspoke.
In that the state cannot make its prima facie case, in that I have been charged with manufacturing cannabis. Unless the state can bring in Mr. Wizard to manufacture some cannabis, they cannot proceed in good faith in that cannabis is cultivated. A moment, Your Honor.
All right, hang on. We're not going to start having motion hearings.
I just wish to make it clear to you. See, this is a bag of grass. Don't get alarmed. It's from my lawn. It was not manufactured. It was cultivated. As is all grass, including the jar full of grass that was stolen by the Memphis Multi-Game Unit. And so at this time, without going into the legislation involved, I simply ask that the court rule on the attenuated defective affidavit in that the state cannot proceed now unless you can manufacture cannabis. I'm going to prove that cannabis is not manufactured.
Hang on.
Now, you see that? There you know. At the trial of the millennium, they took out the term manufactured. Notice that?
Yes, I noticed it was obviously missing. Not to be mentioned.
You see, each and every step of the way you take another chunk out of them. Now they don't call it manufactured. Now they got to scramble. Now they've tried to create a no mens rea reform act so that you don't say no mens rea. They want to say you got a guilty mind because we told you that you can't sit at the front of the bus, nigger. So that is how they're branding us, and I will not accept that branding. And so I have to go to the land of the violent criminal to be a non-violent criminal who's branded as a violent criminal for doing nothing to no one. I've got a lot to sort out, and I'm going to need your help. Get to the courthouse. Call up lawyers and tell them to say no mens rea until they represent the law. They have to represent the law, otherwise they're committing a crime. Politically motivated judicial bias. You cannot follow politics and legislation. So this is my last Freedom Cast. I am concluding. I will not be here, but the Freedom Cast will go on. And we're going to look for more of you to get involved with this here on this cast. Get your own word going out. You never know who's going to hear it next. Yesterday, a very influential person came to the realm in the form of Tom Lucky, who's working deep with Morgan & Morgan, who are spending $100 million to medicalize marijuana to put me in prison. Your $100 million puts me in prison. For the price of a good bag of weed, I can free us all. Okay? But don't worry, I'll take some of that $100 million. There's $1 million button on my Freedom Fund. Believe me, some of you out there have got that to do. Morgan & Morgan, you'd be one of them. Wiz Khalifa is getting free weed for life. Now, Tom Lucky is reaching out, working with these attorneys, Matthew Pappas, attorney at law, and Michael Minardi, and now it is time for them to work for me. Because when you set me free, you set everyone free. Get medicalized marijuana on the books, and I'm fucked. And so are millions of others. So no more fucking millions of others. Well, not like that.
No mens rea.
This would be good at 1,000. And so, I have enjoyed being here and cultivating these associations and friendships, and those of you who have come into our lives profoundly. And I have been grateful to spend this time with you, and I know that it makes a difference in lives, and I want it to make a difference in a whole lot more lives. That's my whole goal. If that's popularity, great, but that's not the goal. A lot of people don't know Loving v. Virginia. Every time a black guy and a white guy fuck, they don't say, thank you, Richard and Mildred Loving.
No,
they just fuck. Because they don't have to answer to anyone. That will be my greatest reward.
It's a man and woman, not a guy and guy.
Oh, yeah. It's on them. No. Who rides decides.
Now everybody can get together. It doesn't matter.
And so, we just can't get together and smoke pot.
No.
And so that's what. So you come on back here, Lady L. We'll have a story to tell you tomorrow. You're already going to have a story to tell tomorrow.
I will.
Tell all your friends to tune in tomorrow morning right here on this page at what would be about 8:30 a.m., 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. And that will be 8:30 here as I get ready to go to court. I got something for you. So you're going to want to check it out. So,
all right, party peeps. It's time for you to go to ThornePeters.com. THORNE Peters.com. The world's most evocative website.
I am a pot smoker. I love smoking pot with smoking hot women.
That's what your cue is.
I have to be called into service. Peace.
So, until next week on Fab, may you look inward, outward, and upward to find peace, love, and stars. Take care.
Yeah, no. Ah!